Chapter 2246. Everyone looked at Ruik Des. Ruik Des carefully observed the apathy formula in front of him. Then, Ruik Des felt that he had understood and solved the apathy formula. Ruik Des placed his palms on the outer wall of the obelisk. He sent magic power into the obelisk and a wisp of consciousness at the same time. The apathy formula, which was displayed in light and shadow, suddenly changed. Ruik Des's solution to the formula appeared in the light and shadow. Of course, this was only the first step. Just then, the obelisk released a wave of magic power. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. The ground around them started protruding. Clay men stood up from the mounds. When everyone saw the clay men, they heaved a sigh of relief. There were a lot of clay men, but they were very weak, very, very weak. Fa Jing punched and 7 or 8 clay men were crushed. They're too weak. I didn't even use any strength. Fa Jing waved the clay in his fist. They're too weak. I didn't even use any strength. Fa Jing waved the clay in his fist. Indeed. Tinkle casually threw out a spell and dozens of clay men were smashed into pieces. Of course, their attacks and the clay men they destroyed were just a drop in the ocean compared to the densely packed clay men. However, any one of these clay men could destroy an entire army. The most efficient was the rat demon, Wei Daheng. He summoned thousands of rats and wiped out hundreds of clay men with a single sweep. This is so fun. I feel like I'm invincible, Wei Daheng exclaimed. After all, in most situations, they couldn't fight against 100 alone. Even if they faced 100 ordinary people, they might not win. However, the clay men were much weaker than ordinary people. Very, very weak. Even if one person faced an army of thousands, they could easily deal with it. These clay men are too weak. Chen Zhao and Baifla were hiding in the dark and watching the show. Baifla crossed his arms in front of his chest and looked coldly at the chaotic battlefield. It definitely won't be that easy. The previous 6 levels weren't easy at all, and they were gradually increasing in difficulty. No matter how you look at it, the 7th level will definitely be more difficult than the previous 6. It's impossible for it to be the easiest. Baifla's gaze landed on Ruik Des. Ruik Des was immersed in the process of deciphering the apathy formula. It was as if the battle around him had nothing to do with him. He just needed to focus on the work in front of him. In fact, he had already negotiated with the team from Wutai Mountain and the team from the Union of 10,000 Immortals. He could put in more effort, but if he needed to deal with it wholeheartedly, both teams had to be responsible for Madwa Shinji's safety. Although Mado Shinji kept saying that she could protect herself, she didn't care. In fact, everyone knew that Madwa Shinji was far from being able to protect herself. At least in most situations, she was the one who needed to be protected. Although her stamina and physique had already surpassed ordinary people, she still hadn't reached the combat power of a spiritualist. Furthermore, her combat experience was pitifully low. At this moment, Madwa Shinji was indeed under everyone's protection. She didn't even have the chance to participate in the battle. Even when facing these extremely weak clay people, she didn't have the chance to attack. There was another person following her. As long as she got a little closer to the front line, she would be pulled back. After thinking for a few minutes, Ruik wrote down the second step of the solution. The moment he wrote down the second step of the solution, the obelisk once again released a magical fluctuation. Then, the clay people around him suddenly became stronger. These clay people were taller, and their speed and strength had increased. Oh no, this is the wrong step. Ruik Des suddenly realized. He also noticed the change in the clay people around him. So that was it. If his solution was wrong, the strength of the clay people would increase. The team from Wutai Mountain and the Union of 10,000 Immortals also realized this. Mr. Ruick, don't make a mistake. Although the strength of these clay people is not strong, there are too many of them. You don't need to talk too much. Just do your job, Ruick Des responded with a cold face. However, he still calmed himself down and started to deduce the formula more seriously. He tried again to modify the formula. At this time, the obelisk changed the strength of the clay people again. He had become even more powerful. These clay people actually became stronger. How is this possible? I didn't make a mistake. How could? Ruick Des was a little panicked. Mr. Ruick, don't disturb me. Ruick Des roared. Chen Zhao and Biflo were both surprised that the usually calm Ruick Des would be furious now. He looks like he's losing control of his emotions. Rationality requires self-control, Biflo said calmly. When people are highly focused, they forget to control their emotions. Is the step he solved wrong? I know alchemy, but I'm not very good at it. The Apathy formula is not something I can understand. Haven't you lived for more than 400 years? That's not enough time for you to learn. Alchemy is a system that requires a lot of talent. I happen to have no talent in this area, and the alchemy I know is inherited from a student of mine, Biflo said calmly. Moreover, do you really think that 400 years is a long time? I only have a few times more knowledge than a normal person. There are still many things in this world that I don't know. Chen Zhao thought about it and it seemed to be true. It seemed like 400 years was an eternity. In reality, it wasn't. It was impossible for a person to keep learning for 400 years. For example, a normal person only had a dozen or so years to learn. Compared to a normal person, it was only a few times more. It's rare that there's something you don't know. How rare? Biflo snorted, ignoring Chen Zhao's mockery. Just then, the situation on the battlefield became even more chaotic. As Ruick Des solved the next step, the clay people became stronger again. Of course, because the clay people's bottom line was too low, they were still weak even after 2 or 3 times stronger. Although the two teams felt pressured, it was far from enough to threaten their lives. This level doesn't seem so simple. Whether Ruick Des's solution is right or wrong, it will increase the clay people's strength. Chapter 2247. Biflo wasn't the only one who understood now. Ruick Dales understood as well. He was very sure that other than the first mistake, he hadn't made any mistakes in the following 2 times. But the clay man had still been strengthened. The only difference was the strength of the increase. Ruick Des thought deeply for a while and completely understood where the difficulty of this checkpoint was. The difficulty wasn't in the Apathy formula itself. It was in the speed and slowness of the solution. If he solved the problem with the least number of steps, he could pass the level in the shortest way. The longer he took, the more dangerous it would be. This was why Ruick Des had to rethink his method of solving the problem. He was confident that with his abilities, solving the Apathy formula wouldn't be difficult. But how could he solve it in the shortest and easiest way? That was where the real difficulty lay. According to Ruick Des's original plan, he could solve the formula in the safest way. But it would take around 6 hours. What exactly is the Apathy formula? Chen Zhao asked, confused. Why can't I solve it in one go after figuring out the complete solution? Do we have to solve it step by step? Chen Zhao asked, confused. Apathy is the name of a person. He was an alchemist about 2,300 years ago, Biflo said. Biflo said, the spiritualists of that era focused on longevity. It was the same in both the East and the West. Apicius was one of those who pursued longevity. Later, he discovered a method to extend one's lifespan. This method was the Apicius formula. Chen Zhao was instantly interested. Extend one's life. He'd done research on it before. But the final result wasn't as he'd hoped. In the spiritual world, many people have actually used the apathy formula to calculate the results. Most of the older generation of spiritualists who have lived for more than 100 years have used the apathy formula to calculate the results. Since it's a public magic formula and there's already a result, there shouldn't be any difficulty, right? Chen Zhao didn't understand why there was a need to recalculate. He thought that he had found the key to life, but then he discovered a big problem. His experiments on himself were successful, but his experiments on the second and third people always ended in failure. He couldn't understand why the correct calculation results couldn't be used on other people. It wasn't until his later years that he figured out the reason. It was because of the differences between people. To put it simply, everyone's data was different, but the formula he invented was the result of careful calculation. That was why his experiments on himself were always successful, but his experiments on others were always failures. Later, after he improved the formula and added the personal data of the target, it became the real apathy formula. That is to say, the apathy formula will be very different for different targets. Even twins will be different if their data are added to the apathy formula, so the calculation results will be different. Moreover, the calculation and solution are very complicated, so he had to solve the problem step by step. Rooker was also very hesitant. Recalculate. Think of new steps to solve the problem. Then all his previous efforts would be in vain. Moreover, these clay men would continue to strengthen. However, if he didn't recalculate and continued to use the previous method, the clay men would become stronger. Every step would make the clay men stronger, and the two teams would eventually collapse. After hesitating for a while, Rooker finally made up his mind and recalculated. Damn, they've become stronger again. Mr. Rooker, by now, these clay men were already as strong as ordinary people. Moreover, there was an endless number of them. No matter how many the two teams killed, they would always stand up again. There would only be more of them. Moreover, even if Rooker didn't do anything, they would slowly become stronger. The two teams were no longer able to deal with the clay men as they did in the beginning, chatting merrily. You're saying that many people in the spiritual world have used this apathy formula. How much lifespan can this apathy formula increase? Not necessarily. Everyone's data is different, so the results are also different. However, most people who use the apathy formula get an increase in lifespan of between 1 to 20 years. Can ordinary people use it? No, I can't. One of the most basic requirements of the apathy formula is magic power. Chen Zhao was somewhat disappointed, but potions made from perfect demonic crystals also had the effect of increasing lifespan. Moreover, the potion could be used on ordinary people. Of course, it wasn't clear how much lifespan the perfect potion could increase. After all, spiritualists could use many magical methods, such as fortune-telling or prophecy, to find out where their life would end. But ordinary people didn't have that many methods. At least, the current medical technology wasn't at this level yet. You've used the apathy formula before. Yes, I used it in my third life. At that time, I asked the best alchemist in Europe to help me calculate my apathy formula. That alchemist used 4 days to calculate the correct result. You said that the best alchemist used 4 days. How long do you think Rooker will need? I don't think they can last more than 4 days. In the spiritual world, all of magic is actually regressing, while alchemy magic is constantly improving. The entire magic system is constructed under the influence of the spirit energy tide of the entire world. It's just like the high tide and the low tide. During the high tide, magic civilization will flourish, and during the low tide, magic civilization will show signs of regression. However, alchemy magic is different. Alchemy magic relies more on technology and genius alchemists that appear in certain times. As long as the results of their research aren't lost, the level of alchemy will continue to improve. You're saying that the spiritual energy tide is at a low tide now. How long will it last? The spiritual energy tide usually rises and falls every 500 years. It's been about 300 years since the peak of the last tide. In other words, we'll have to wait another 200 years to feel the next spiritual energy tide. Why don't I feel anything special? Of course. You grew up in a spiritual energy environment during a low tide. What do you feel? You're like a kid from a slum. He'll never know how rich the rich are. Chapter 22:48. Ruik Des continued to solve the problem. The pressure on the Wutai Mountain team and the Union of 10,000 Immortals team was getting greater and greater. Up until now, the strength of the Clay Army had exceeded the equilibrium line of ordinary people. This also meant that the line of defense formed by the two teams was heading towards collapse. Now, their attacks could no longer be as powerful as before, where they could casually destroy dozens of enemies with a single blow. Now, it was very difficult to destroy even a few of them at once. They needed to use more powerful magic power. Although Ruik Des was fully immersed in the process of solving the problem, he was not able to do so. However, he was also observing the situation at the scene. Ma Duo, use the potion. As Ruik Des continued to solve the problem, he called out to Mado Shinji, number 4, the green potion. Maduo lifted the corner of her clothes. There was an ammunition belt hanging inside, and a bottle of potion was stuffed in each ammunition slot. It was something Ruik Des had given her to protect herself. The potions were numbered so that Maduo Shinji could identify and use them. Maduo took out the number 4 green potion and drank it. Maduo Shinji's skin began to turn dark green. Maduo Shinji suddenly moved, her speed more than 10 times faster than before. Even the teams from Wutai Mountain and the Union of 10,000 Immortals were surprised. They all knew that Maduo Shinji was just an ordinary person. At least they didn't find any magic in Maduo Shinji. Just by relying on that potion, he was able to unleash such an astonishing speed. Maduo Shinji took advantage of her speed and agilely moved through the Clay Army. She didn't have a lot of combat experience. In fact, it could even be said that she lacked it. However, she had been cramming some combat skills recently. Although it wasn't much of an improvement, it would still be of some use here. Of course, this was completely improved by potions. In the end, it would still return to Maduo Shinji's body. Therefore, these medicines all had side effects. Of course, the side effects of this potion were not that great. At least it wasn't too dangerous for Maduo Shinji. Just to overload her body a little. After the effects of the drug wore off, there would be a certain degree of fatigue. Maduo Shinji's combat power was limited, so even if she joined the battle, it would not affect the overall situation much. Ruik Des became even more serious about solving the Apacy formula. However, as he increased his speed, the Clay Man's strength also increased rapidly. The situation seems out of control, Chen Zhao said. What about us? Just watch. Bifula looked at Chen Zhao. If there's a big problem sealed behind this level, Chen Zhao said. If we act now, it means that we're personally releasing the big problem. So you're just going to watch them die. You should know that we encourage them to come here, Bifula said. B. He was surprised that Bifula, B. He was just surprised that Bifula would have such emotions. Chen Zhao followed Bifula's gaze and realized that he was looking at Maduo Shinji. So you feel guilty because of Maduo Shinji. Maduo is Chen, star. API 1010, I mod with thousand people, comma, thousand chin thousand. Even though I have extraordinary power now, I'm still a human in essence. Don't forget, so are you. Therefore, human emotions should appear in you and me, and not look down on all living beings from above. Chen Zhao could not help but be surprised by Bifla's words. In the past, Chen Zhao had the thought that Chen Zhao was an ant. But now, he had passed that period. What surprised Chen Zhao was Bifla's current attitude. Bifla had been so proud, even arrogant. But at this moment, he had a few more human emotions. Fine, you're right. Chen Zhao shrugged. Are you going to attack? Bifla answered Chen Zhao's question with action. Bifla's sudden appearance in the middle of the battlefield shocked everyone. Even Ruik Des had to divert his attention and put more of his attention on Bifla. He didn't understand why Bifla, who had been hiding, would appear. And where was Chen Zhao now? What was their goal? But then, Chen Zhao appeared beside Bifla. All of you, back off, Bifla said. Hearing this, the Wutai Mountain team and the alliance of 10,000 immortals were overjoyed. Only Madwa 10,000 immortals was still suspicious. After all, in her eyes, Chen Zhao and Bifla were still traitors. Bifla didn't care about Madwa 10,000 immortals' thoughts. He waved his hand casually. A wave of fire rolled up in front of him, and the fire wave swept outwards. In the blink of an eye, the wave of fire spread across the entire battlefield. Countless clay people were instantly burned into ceramics. Like a large terracotta army, they were all frozen in place. Ruik Des sucked in a cold breath. Such powerful magic. Look at how he cast it. It didn't take any effort at all. It was like a casual attack. This kind of attack was too terrifying. At least, Ruik Des knew that if it were him, he definitely wouldn't be able to do it so easily. If he used all of his magic power, he might just be able to release this attack. You should focus more, Bifla reminded him. Ruik Des snorted coldly and looked away. But his mouth was still unforgiving. I won't leave my back to two traitors, he said. Madwa 10,000 immortals watched Bifla's shocking attack. She was overwhelmed with emotions. She had never wanted power so much. To have such unparalleled power. But she knew very well. With her current strength, she couldn't compare to Bifla and Chen Zhao. Even every member of the Wutai Mountain team and the alliance of 10,000 immortals was stronger than her. Cracks gradually appeared on the bodies of the clay men that had been baked into ceramics. Then, new and stronger clay men walked out of the cracks one by one. As expected, they can't be killed. Bifla shrugged. Although the clay people's strength had been strengthened, they were still facing Bifla. They were still no different from the original clay people. A bowl of azure flame rose from Bifla's fingertip. He casually tossed it out. In an instant, the azure flame started bouncing within the clay man. As long as the clay men were touched by the azure flames, they would instantly collapse. Moreover, the blue flame bounced very quickly. In the blink of an eye, the reborn clay people returned to dust. Chapter 2249. As expected, the clay men army stood up again. Their strength had also been further strengthened. However, this degree of strengthening still could not make Bifla use a second move. However, Bifla obviously did not intend to use the same trick again. Bifla pointed his finger, and a death ray burst out from his fingertip. However, the death ray released by Bifla was completely different from the death ray released by others. The moment the death ray released by Bifla hit the first clay man, it split into two. And after the two death rays hit the clay man, they became 4. From 4 to 8, from 8, In just a few seconds, the battlefield in front of them had been formed into a dense red network by the death rays. This amazing magic effect stunned the Wutai Mountain team and the union of 10,000 immortals. Not only them, but even Ruik Des could not believe it. At this moment, he completely understood that Bifla's magic level and magic power level were far above his. Bifla made 3 moves, and all 3 moves were so shocking. If it were Ruik Des himself, he would have to use all his magic power to make these 3 moves. But for Bifla, it was as easy as lifting a finger. Ruik Des's heart skipped a beat. Then let him test the depth of his strength. Ruik Des deliberately misinterpreted the steps. The strength of the Clay Men army that had been revived instantly increased by several times. Bifla glanced at Ruik Des from the corner of his eye. This doesn't seem like a mistake you should make. If you think I'm not qualified, you can do it yourself, Ruik Des retorted. Bifla did not argue with Ruik Des. He stamped his foot, and the ground formed an impact that rushed toward the Clay Men army. All the Clay Men army that was affected by the impact fell apart in an instant. In just a few seconds, all the Clay Men had been killed in an instant. Ruik Des secretly marveled. At this moment, the strength of the Clay Men army was already very strong. But they were still crushed by Bifla in seconds. How strong was Bifla? And the stronger Bifla was, the more Madwa Shinji longed for power. This was her first time seeing the power and inconceivability of magic. Ruik Des was up to no good once again. However, the result was the same. Bifla was still easily defeated. Moreover, it was a new trick. Bifla's knowledge of magic and the types of magic he possessed were simply too rich. Although Ruik Des was also very knowledgeable, he was not as knowledgeable. However, compared to Bifla, there was still a gap. Bifla could spend an entire day demonstrating this playstyle to Ruik Des without repeating the same moves. Even if it was the same spell, there were 2 or more different ways of displaying it. Furthermore, there was still a limit to how much the Clay Man could strengthen himself. Nothing could be improved infinitely in this way. Even the designer and creator of this level couldn't do it, let alone these lifeless clay people. Just as Bifla had guessed, the Clay Men soon reached their limit. The strongest of these Clay Men were probably at the level of an ordinary enhanced type spirit controller. Their speed was similar to that of a normal person, but their strength was far greater than that of a normal person. Also, their defense mainly came from the rock shell they were covered with. But after Ruik Des deliberately misinterpreted the steps, the obelisk once again released a magical ripple. All Clay Men received a blessing spell. This was the extra boost they received after their strength reached its limit. Seeing that he still couldn't find out Bifla's limit, Ruik Des gave up on the idea. He had already wasted a lot of time. He didn't want to continue like this. Mado Shinji glanced at Qin Zhao, who was sitting at the side and watching the show lazily. Aren't you going to help him? I can't do a flashy magic attack like his. Qin Zhao really liked this kind of beautiful magic. However, Qin Zhao couldn't do it himself. His attacks were all straightforward. Most of the time, they weren't worth watching. Naturally, Mado Shinji thought that Qin Zhao didn't think he was as strong as Bifla. But this was understandable. Firstly, she wasn't from the spiritual world. Secondly, her knowledge of the spiritual world was still very shallow. Ruik Des sped up his problem-solving speed. The Clay Men also started receiving all sorts of blessings and enhancement spells. Finally, an hour later, Ruik Des finished the last step. Immediately, the obelisk started shaking violently and releasing magical ripples. Every time it released a magical ripple, the Clay Men would receive a blessing spell. Speed enhancement, strength enhancement, immortal blessing, damage repair, but the Clay Men still didn't stop. Damn bastard, what's going on? I've already solved the problem. The clay men should stop attacking. Ruik Des was a bit impatient, but he still checked it carefully from the beginning patiently. After checking again and again, Ruik Des was very sure that his solution was correct. But the clay men still didn't stop attacking. Right now, each clay man had a dozen blessing spells on them. Why can't I pass? Where did I go wrong? Where did I go wrong? Ruik Des checked it again and again, but still couldn't find out where he'd gone wrong. But just then, Chen Zhao suddenly walked to Ruik Des's side. Before Ruik Des could react, Chen Zhao suddenly reached out and pressed both palms on the obelisk. Since the problem-solving formula can't solve the problem must be this thing. Just destroy it. This obelisk has been blessed with indestructibility, and its main material is black mysterious gold. It's not. Before Ruik Des could finish, he suddenly saw Chen Zhao's palms press down and the obelisk started distorting. Watch me crush it. Chen Zhao shouted. Cracks appeared on the obelisk. Ruik Des couldn't close his mouth. What was with this guy's power? How could he destroy black mysterious gold? The Wutai Mountain team and the alliance of 10,000 immortals were already used to this. After all, in Theodosius I's mausoleum, Chen Zhao had blown up the black-armored general with one punch. So, seeing Chen Zhao crush the obelisk made of black mysterious gold was nothing to be surprised about. Chapter 2250. In an instant, all the clay men lost their vitality and mobility. All the clay men were collapsing. The door that had been hidden behind the obelisk was finally revealed. Actually, from start to finish, you only need to destroy the obelisk to pass. Why do you have to follow the preset rules? Chen Zhao's words made Rooker speechless. Yes, it was indeed very simple. Just like what Chen Zhao had done, destroying the obelisk would solve all problems. But, destroying the obelisk. If he could do it, there wouldn't be any more problems. At this moment, Rooker also understood. Whether it was Chen Zhao or Bifla, he hadn't seen them clearly. He couldn't see Chen Zhao and Bifla's true abilities. He couldn't see their identities or intentions. In Madhwa Shinji's eyes, Chen Zhao's crushing of the obelisk was quite shocking. But it was different from Bifla's omnidirectional magic attacks. Bifla's magic was beautiful and shocking. It was as colorful as a rainbow and as frightening as the might of the heavens. In comparison, Chen Zhao wasn't as shocking. Chen Zhao's methods were too ordinary and mediocre before Bifla. But Rooker didn't think so. Black mystic gold was the hardest metal in the spiritual world. It was said to be able to block doomsday spells. It wasn't completely indestructible. But that required power that humans could never reach. But Chen Zhao could do it. It seemed like he hadn't used his full strength either. From this, it could be seen that Chen Zhao's abilities weren't much weaker than Bifla's. Both Chen Zhao and Bifla's methods were beyond his reach. Rooker couldn't reach them. Chen Zhao and Bifla didn't know what Rooker was thinking. They were more interested in the open door. But the door didn't seem to have any other reactions. What they'd been worried about and hopeful about didn't happen. The door was made of an unknown material. It was closed from front to back and didn't have any special magic waves. It stood there calmly and alone. No monsters came out of the door. Nothing. Just then, the ground started shaking. Did something break out of the seal? Chen Zhao was suddenly interested. No, this tremor is due to our battle. It has caused the geological structure of this place to change. This place is about to collapse, Bifla said. Or rather, do you feel something? I don't feel anything, but don't you think it's weird? When we were in Theodosius I's mausoleum, the ground also changed. It's the same this time. Of course, it's because of our battle, but don't you think it's too much of a coincidence that the same thing happened twice? Bifla thought about it and said, but I really didn't feel anything else. Forget it, maybe I'm really thinking too much. Chen Zhao easily gave up on pursuing the truth. Just like how he did things in the past, if it didn't concern him, he would let it go. Curiosity often leads to trouble, and trouble often leads to disaster. Where's the thing? Ruik Des asked. He wasn't here for a vacation, nor was he here to do good deeds with two unrelated teams. He had his own purpose, but he didn't find what he wanted. Moreover, the underground space of the sewer seemed to be very unstable, and there was a danger that it would collapse at any time. Mr. Ruik, let's go out quickly. This place is about to collapse. No, I want to find that thing. What do you want? Bifla asked. Ruik Des looked at Bifla, his eyes flickering. After a long hesitation, he said, the medicine of infinity. Pfft. What exactly are you trying to make? You actually need the medicine of infinity. What's the medicine of infinity? Chen Zhao asked curiously. Do you know about the catalyst? Yes. The concept of catalyst came from Chinese medicine. The so-called drug catalyst was actually when two medicinal herbs' medicinal properties were in conflict with each other, a third medicinal herb would be used to neutralize them. This would allow the two medicinal herbs' medicinal properties to perform their respective functions without causing the two medicinal properties to cancel each other out. However, there was a limit to the catalyst. Some herbs with two strong properties needed a special catalyst to neutralize them. You're saying that the medicine of infinity is the catalyst? Yes, and the medicine of infinity is said to be the catalyst for all medicines. You know a lot, Ruik Des said, annoyed. I don't have the medicine of infinity. Do you want it? You do. Ruik Des raised an eyebrow. The recipe for the medicine of infinity was lost hundreds of years ago. How do you have it? That's not your concern. You just need to answer me. Do you want it or not? What do you want? What do you have that can tempt me? Bifla asked back. Aosta's treasure map in Greenland Island. I'm very rich. I don't need any treasures. Plus, Aosta's treasure is actually a scam. The mystery of Louis Xi's crown. There's no need. I know everything about Louis XII. I also know the secret hidden in that broken crown of his. That's the secret scepter of Pharaoh Khufu. No need, Ruik Des didn't give up. He kept proposing almost legendary things. But Bifla rejected them all. What exactly do you want? Ruik Des looked at Bifla and Chen Zhao warily. He was worried that they would ask for things he couldn't give, such as the Ring of Endless. And the medicine of infinity was something he really needed right now. If Bifla asked to trade the Ring of Endless for it, should he agree? The Ring of Restlessness was very important to him. It could even be said to be a symbol of his status. None of what you've said is enough to move me, Bifla said indifferently. Just say what you want. Don't beat around the bush. I don't know what I want either. Not long ago, I wanted to break through, but now I've broken through, so I don't know what I want. Bifla's smile made people feel uncomfortable. Ruik Des's expression kept changing. Bifla continued, are you worried that you won't accept my suggestion to trade the Ring of Endless? Don't even think about it. I won't agree. The Ring of Endless that you treat like a treasure is meaningless to me. If I want to steal it, you won't be able to keep it. 9 Heavens Divine King. Chapter 22:51. He didn't like Bifla's arrogance and disdain. But right now, he didn't want to have a conflict with Bifla. Plus, Chen Zhao, who wasn't weak either, was eyeing him. What exactly do you want? The books of your legacy system. Bifla finally revealed his intentions. Ruik Des's pupils dilated abruptly. After a while, he calmed down quietly. Sure, Ruik said. But it's only for borrowing. The two had reached a preliminary agreement. After we leave Desolate Town, I'll give you the medicine of infinity. Also, I have to collect other materials in Desolate Town, Ruik said. Hey, shouldn't we think about leaving? This place is really going to collapse soon. Rocks kept falling from above. All signs indicated that. All signs showed that this place could collapse at any time. Chen Zhao led the way out of the sewers. I really don't understand who built the sewers into a maze. It's so weird. In fact, although they'd come in through the sewers, the rest of the way was completely out of the sewers. However, Chen Zhao could just destroy some sections. After punching through the walls, they could still save a lot of time. After they left the sewers, the ground behind them sank with a rumble. But just then, Chen Zhao felt dense spiritual qi seeping out from the sunken ground. It was several times denser than the outside world. Celestial Master Zhang is coming this way, Bifla said. Ha! Chen Zhao tilted his head to the southwest. He could indeed feel two auras approaching. Chen Zhao couldn't tell who it was from the aura. But since Bifla said it was Zhang Tianyi, it must be him. Let's go, Chen Zhao said. I don't want to meet him. Bifla nodded and turned to Ruik. After the second trial, we'll trade outside Desolate Town. I hope you'll keep your promise. You too, Ruik Des replied coldly. Now, the two auras were even closer. Even Ruik Des could feel the aura approaching. Motto, let's go. After calling out to Madhwa Shinji, Ruik Des immediately turned around and left. Finally, only the Wutai Mountain team and the Union of 10,000 Immortals team were left. This time, they stayed in the sewers for almost 2 days. But the higher-ups didn't find anything. This made all of them quite discouraged. He hated Chen Zhao and Bifla even more. Ha! Zhang Tianyi suddenly stopped walking. What's wrong? Asked Wendy. We might be a step too late. Zhang Tianyi sensed a few auras that had already left before them. 2 of them were familiar to him. They were Chen Zhao and Bifla. They parted in different directions. It seemed that they had purposely spread out to avoid facing him. If Zhang Tianyi wanted to chase after them, he could only choose one of them. One of them is Bifla. I feel that the spiritual energy of the world ahead has become denser. Does it have something to do with Bifla? It's most likely related to him, Zhang Tianyi said. Kelly and Evelyn had no idea what was happening. They silently followed behind Zhang Tianyi. Celestial Master Zhang, can you tell me what happened? As a normal person, it's hard for me to explain exactly what happened. Zhang Tianyi wasn't trying to avoid it. He really didn't know how to explain it. In the other direction of the wasteland market, a man wearing a hoodie was strolling on the empty road. He was walking in the direction where the spiritual energy had suddenly burst out. The second ancient seal. Is it open? Those guys are better than I thought. Just then, someone walked over. He was dressed exactly like the person, but he wasn't wearing a hat. When they saw each other, they were both stunned. Chen Zhao put his hands in his pockets and looked at the person before him. The person was also looking at Chen Zhao. The two stared at each other from a dozen meters away. Don't look for trouble. Don't look for trouble. Chen Zhao muttered to himself as he continued forward. But the person didn't hear Chen Zhao's muttering. I don't like people wearing the same clothes as me. I don't like it either, Chen Zhao said, shrugging. But it can't be helped. It's already happened. Just then, the person waved his scythe. I'll kill you. Chen Zhao moved and dodged the scythe flying in front of him. Don't be like that, okay? We just wore the same clothes. I told you, I don't like it. There's no point in fighting like this, Chen Zhao said helplessly. Don't worry. You'll lose consciousness soon. I'm good at it. I'm good at killing too. The person suddenly turned ghostly. He waved the scythe in his hand and his figure flickered. His body also became incorporeal. The person waved the scythe and floated behind Chen Zhao. He slashed at the back of Chen Zhao's neck. Chen Zhao's figure sank and he dodged the attack by a hair's breadth. Ha! You can capture my figure. Your speed isn't very fast. Why do you think that my eyes can't capture your figure? You shouldn't be able to see me, the Grim Reaper, the person said. Grim Reaper. Chen Zhao suddenly realized that the scythe in Ruik's hand looked like Blackie's scythe. But the person was definitely alive. That was for sure. Chen Zhao didn't know that the person was the number one of the famous 10 villains, Scythe. Of course, even if he knew, Chen Zhao wouldn't give him too much attention or respect. Scythe stared at Chen Zhao. Looks like I'll have to use some real skills to deal with you. Oh. Do you still have energy? I'm starting to look forward to your performance. Just looking forward to it. Arrogant guy, if you know my title, maybe you'll respect me a little more. Maybe you'll even be a little more afraid. Oh, are you famous in the spiritual world? I'm Scythe, one of the 10 villains, Scythe said coldly. I've never heard of it, but I think you've gained my respect. Chen Zhao had never heard of this title before. But judging from the person's tone, he should be famous. Chen Zhao was also very interested in the scythe in his hand. Chen Zhao wanted to know if the scythe and Blackie's scythe were the same thing. Or maybe they were just similar magic tools. Chapter 2252. Chen Zhao kept saying that he respected Scythe. But Scythe didn't feel any respect from Chen Zhao's words or attitude. That frivolous tone and casual gaze didn't seem to be respect for Scythe. Maybe he didn't even know him. Scythe was annoyed. Scythe's figure moved around like a ghost. Sometimes he appeared in front of Chen Zhao, and sometimes he flashed behind Chen Zhao. He waved the Grim Reaper scythe in his hand lightly, tearing the air. It seemed like this could pressure Chen Zhao. Scratching his head, Chen Zhao said in distress, "Brother, you're making yourself look like a vengeful spirit. Do you think I'm a normal person? Can't we be more direct? You slash at me with the scythe and I nimbly dodge it. Then I turn around and punch you so hard that even your mother can't recognize you. What do you think?" Scythe's face darkened. He slashed at Chen Zhao's back without any care. This time, Chen Zhao didn't dodge. He let the Grim Reaper scythe hit him. Clang! The Grim Reaper scythe created sparks on Chen Zhao's body, but he was unharmed. Just as Scythe was panicking, Chen Zhao raised his fist and punched Scythe's face. But this punch had missed. More accurately, it went through Scythe's face. Ha! Ha! Chen Zhao and Scythe both retreated more than 10 meters. Both looked surprised. This feeling was the same as when he faced Blackie. There was no physical touch or spiritual feeling. Scythe was also surprised. The Grim Reaper scythe didn't just target the body. It was a fatal threat to the soul too. But the Grim Reaper scythe in his hand was useless against the man before him. Are you surprised that your Grim Reaper scythe is useless? The Grim Reaper is not a spiritual body, nor is it a physical body. Most people can't see the Grim Reaper because the Grim Reaper permanently exists in this world and other dimensions, so it can't be seen or touched. However, the Grim Reaper can attack the soul, and it can also attack the living. When attacking the soul, the Grim Reaper needs to transform itself into a spiritual body. When attacking the living, it needs to transform itself into a physical body. Do you understand? As long as you use physical attacks, it's useless against me. You can't beat me in close combat. Hearing that, Sickle's expression turned serious. The man in front of him knew more about the Grim Reaper's scythe than he did. This made him feel a sense of crisis. In the past, he had always been successful with the scythe of the Grim Reaper. No matter how much stronger the enemy was, they couldn't do anything to him. Because of the uniqueness of the Grim Reaper scythe. When he used the Grim Reaper scythe to transform into a Grim Reaper, no matter if it was a magical attack, a physical attack, or a spiritual attack, nothing posed a threat to him. But now, there was someone who knew his background. How could he calm down? The man in front of him must die. Scythe gripped the Grim Reaper scythe tightly. At this moment, a group of people appeared in the distance. Their leader was Nancy. Both she and her companion sensed the battle ahead. What's with that eerie and terrifying aura? Scythe. It's a sickle. Everyone's expression changed when they heard this name. Sickle. Even though there were 2 of the 10 evildoers among them, they were still in awe of the leader of the 10 evildoers. Smoke rose from the battlefield in front of them, and vengeful souls flew everywhere. It was as if that small area had completely turned into a ghost town. Scythe had already started to treat the enemy before him seriously. 1,000 souls end. The sickle suddenly slashed at Qin Zhao. Instantly, it was as if 1,000 vengeful souls attacked at the same time. The air was filled with the cries of countless souls. Qin Zhao raised his fist and punched the Grim Reaper scythe away. Scythe's expression was serious. Qin Zhao's expression was also serious. This might be the weirdest reason for starting a war since he'd come into contact with the supernatural world. A murder caused by wearing the same clothes. Moreover, he could feel Scythe's murderous intent. He really wanted to fight to the death with him. Scythe sensed Qin Zhao's strength. He'd used the power of 1,000 souls, but he didn't gain any advantage. After a few rounds of attacks, the 1,000 vengeful souls attached to the sickle were all shattered. 10,000 souls burial. This time, Scythe used 10 times more power than before. A terrifying aura whizzed out of his body. Qin Zhao's heart jumped. Why did this sickle look so much like the Japanese samurai? From the way he attacked to the way he held the sickle, it was the same as the Japanese samurai. However, his appearance was that of a white man, not an Asian. In the distance, AI Nancy and the others couldn't see the intense battle ahead. The shockwaves spread in all directions. They didn't dare to get close in case they were affected. Scythe is fighting with the people above. Is it Celestial Master Zhang? Or 23rd Blood Mary? AI Nancy looked at the 2 indistinct figures at the center of the battlefield from afar. They're really strong, AI Nancy said emotionally. Of course Scythe is strong and scary, but who's the other one? It's not Celestial Master Zhang or 23rd Blood Mary. Most of them hadn't seen Celestial Master Zhang or 23rd Blood Mary fight. But from the shockwaves of the battle ahead, it clearly wasn't the style of these 2 pillars of the supernatural world either. At the center of the battlefield, Qin Zhao was getting irritated. He couldn't catch Scythe. Scythe held the Grim Reaper scythe. If Qin Zhao wanted to catch Scythe, he had to materialize his body the moment he attacked. But Scythe was too fast and the time it took for him to materialize was too short. Unless Qin Zhao could grasp that 100th of a second. Otherwise, all of Qin Zhao's attacks would be useless. But similarly, Scythe couldn't hurt Qin Zhao either. Whether it was 1,000 soul extermination or 10,000 soul burial, they were all 10 times more powerful, but they were still very weak against Qin Zhao. This guy was terrifyingly strong. Since when did someone like this appear in the supernatural world? Was the Eastern supernatural world really that strong? Any random one of them was at the monstrous level. Scythe gripped the Grim Reaper's scythe even tighter. It seemed that normal moves wouldn't be able to defeat this guy. 100,000 torrent. Scythe growled. It was like Scythe was controlling an erupting river. 100,000 vengeful spirits swept toward Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao finally realized the problem. Scythe's previous 2 upgrades were all thanks to the vengeful spirits. Qin Zhao didn't find it strange at the time. After all, Scythe had the Grim Reaper's scythe. But now that he used it, Qin Zhao felt that there was a huge problem. Chapter 2253. A Grim Reaper could only exist for about 500 years. For someone like Blackie, who was over 300 years old, he could only collect 10,000 to 20,000 souls. Most of the souls had already gone to where they were supposed to go. There were also some that he kept. Some were used as test subjects, while others were used as servants. He could only take out about 1,000 or 2,000 souls. If there was a Grim Reaper who had been collecting souls for 500 years without sending them to where they were supposed to go and kept them in his hands, he would probably be able to collect tens of thousands of souls. This was probably a relatively close value. Let's say that the person had obtained the Grim Reaper's scythe by accident. When he obtained the scythe, he also obtained the souls of the scythe's original owner, which were probably in the tens of thousands. It would be abnormal if it was more than that. The Grim Reaper couldn't kill at will. For example, Blackie had evolved a few times, but he still followed the rules of the Soul Reapers and didn't dare to violate them. So Qin Zhao had reason to believe that the souls the person before him used weren't the scythe's previous owner's inheritance. They were obtained by killing. The person before him was an out-and-out butcher. So, Qin Zhao killed him to get rid of a scourge for the people. The Soul Reapers were called Grim Reapers mainly because their control and manipulation of souls had reached a level close to that of a god. Under the Grim Reaper scythe's control, the 100,000 vengeful spirits moved as if they were his arms. But even with the Grim Reaper scythe, he couldn't combine the 100,000 vengeful spirits into one. If he could, he might be able to hurt Qin Zhao. But just having them advance and retreat together was like splitting their power. The threat to Qin Zhao was negligible. In fact, it was pointless. The flying vengeful spirits had already blocked Qin Zhao's vision. But he could still sense the scythe's position. Qin Zhao didn't care about the vengeful spirits blocking his way. He slapped the scythe through the air. Suddenly, the scythe sensed something and immediately turned into the Grim Reaper. Instantly, a terrifying power passed through his body and landed not far behind him. Boom! Everything within a few hundred meters was flattened. Even the concrete on the ground was lifted up. Qin Zhao felt it was a pity. As expected, I shouldn't have hoped for such a long-range attack. But Scythe was sweating profusely. If that attack had landed on his body, he would probably have been smashed into pieces. It was too terrifying. This kind of attack was too terrifying. Moreover, from the looks of it, it didn't seem like he was using his full strength at all. It was more like a casual strike. This attack did not cause any damage to the scythe. But all the vengeful spirits blocking his way were killed by the attack. At the very least, thousands of vengeful spirits were destroyed. No, it was too dangerous to continue like this. Scythe thought of escaping. But after thinking about it, he felt that running away would not only damage his reputation. Moreover, he understood his own characteristics so well. Who knew if he would find a way to break his ability in the future? If I can't get rid of him today, in the future, he would definitely become a great threat to him. Finally, Scythe made up her mind. Since he couldn't get rid of him here, he would drag him into a different dimension. Scythe swung the death scythe at the empty air. Chen Zhao suddenly felt a chill on his back. When he turned around, he saw that there was a spatial rift behind him. Before Chen Zhao could react, the countless vengeful spirits in front of him launched their final attack. Countless vengeful spirits slammed into Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao understood that the scythe wanted to pull him into the different dimension. More accurately, it wanted to knock him in. If it was just these vengeful spirits, even if there were 10 times more of them, they still wouldn't be able to knock him into the rift. It was like a small stream that was flooded. No matter how fierce it was, it couldn't break a well-made dam. Right now, Chen Zhao was the dam that was blocking the path to forgiveness. However, Chen Zhao wanted to see how the alternate space behind the crack was different from the one Blackie had created. So, Chen Zhao moved his feet. The flood of vengeful spirits immediately rushed him into the rift. In the blink of an eye, Chen Zhao was on the other side of the rift. Scythe followed closely behind and entered this place. Welcome. You're the only living person who's come in here. Scythe floated high above Chen Zhao's head. In here, I'm the only god. In the sky behind Scythe, a huge patch of dark clouds covered the ground. It wasn't an ordinary dark cloud. It was a boundless terror formed by countless vengeful spirits. Even Chen Zhao couldn't help but gasp when he saw this. How many vengeful spirits are there? How many people have you killed? Chen Zhao thought that he'd killed countless people already. But after seeing the vengeful spirits here, he couldn't help but exclaim. Most of the vengeful spirits here were black. This meant that this person had committed mass murder in a certain part of Africa. Here, you'll face me, who has the power of 1,000,000 souls, just like this. Scythe didn't even need to use the power of the Grim Reaper scythe here. He only needed to slap down from above. The dark clouds in the sky suddenly turned into a huge palm and smashed down at Chen Zhao's head. Chen Zhao looked up at the sky-high palm and also slapped up. The momentum of the world also turned into a huge palm and charged at the falling black palm. Rumble, instantly, the sky changed color. Rumbles and shockwaves swept through every corner of this not-so-big space. Scythe's expression changed. How was this possible? He'd used the power of 2,000,000 vengeful spirits to activate that shocking attack. But this man didn't have anything to rely on. How could he use that attack? Since you know that I know about the Grim Reaper and the Grim Reaper scythe, you shouldn't have brought me here, Chen Zhao said, looking at Scythe. Here, you don't have a third form. You can only be a spirit or a physical body, which happens to be the forms I like to face the most. If Scythe kept fighting Chen Zhao outside, he could use the Grim Reaper transformation to hide his body in an alternate space and avoid all of Scythe's attacks. But here, everyone was in an alternate space. This meant that Scythe's greatest advantage was gone. Scythe's expression changed, but he still pretended to be calm and said, "But here, I have endless power." It's not endless. 2,000,000 vengeful spirits seems like a lot, but it's not inexhaustible. At least to me, this number isn't that despairing. Chapter 2254. Arrogant and Ignorant. Scythe didn't believe that a spiritualist who could fight against 2,000,000 vengeful spirits really existed in this world. So, when Chen Zhao said that, he naturally thought that Chen Zhao was bragging. Or maybe Chen Zhao didn't understand what 2,000,000 meant. Scythe raised the Grim Reaper scythe above his head. The dark clouds in the sky formed a huge vortex. The vortex started from the Grim Reaper scythe. The vengeful spirits in the vortex were being sucked into the Grim Reaper scythe. With power that could destroy everything, it shot toward Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao watched as the apocalyptic power shot toward him. But he didn't look too serious. Instead, he murmured to himself, such a majestic scene. It's a pity there's no audience. Just tremble in front of my power of God. Scythe thought that Chen Zhao's murmur was fear. Brother, you overestimate yourself. Your power is like the Pacific Ocean compared to God. Stubborn. You'll become one of my thousands of servants. Chen Zhao narrowed his eyes and didn't fight back. The dark lava wrapped around him and blocked the flood. The 2 million vengeful spirits were a huge amount of wealth. If Chen Zhao had to collect them himself, even if he had the ability, he wouldn't have the guts to do this. His moral bottom line and the test of human nature made it impossible for him to do this. But it wasn't difficult at all to take other people's things. He wouldn't have any psychological burden. He'd let others take the blame and he'd take the benefits. Then there was the scythe. That was the Grim Reaper's scythe. He had borrowed it from Blackie many times before, wanting to study Blackie's Grim Reaper's scythe. But Blackie had always rejected him. This time, Blackie wouldn't have anything to say if he took something else. Go again. Seeing that Chen Zhao was still fine under the terrifying attack of the vengeful spirits, Scythe was even more shocked and furious. Scythe used almost all his strength. The flood of vengeful spirits surged even more violently. However, this attack wasn't fundamentally different from the previous ones. Brother, can't you do something else? For example, absorb the 2 million vengeful spirits into your body and convert their power into your own. Scythe felt like he was going crazy. The person he was facing was not only powerful enough to make one's hair stand on end. Even his thoughts were terrifying to the point of making one's hair stand on end. Absorb 2 million vengeful spirits into his body. That was no different from suicide. Not to mention 2 million vengeful spirits, he wouldn't even be able to handle 2,000. He was able to control 2 million vengeful spirits because he wielded the death god's scythe. However, this did not mean that he could really devour 2 million vengeful spirits. Although he arrogantly called himself a god here. But he knew his own family well. Whether it was outside or inside, the only thing he could do was to control these vengeful spirits to attack his enemies. He didn't even dare to put down the scythe of the Grim Reaper. Because he was the one who killed these vengeful spirits. Put down the scythe of the death god, and these 2 million vengeful spirits would lose all restraints. He didn't know if the enemy in front of him would die or not, but he was definitely going to die. Looks like you don't have any other moves. How about this, lend me your scythe to play with and I'll spare your dog life. Go to hell. Sickle flew into a rage and shouted, mutual destruction of grievances. Countless vengeful spirits exploded around him. Every vengeful spirit was a massive body of energy. The explosion of every vengeful spirit would bring a terrifying impact. Even the user of the scythe was afraid of the power of thousands and tens of thousands of vengeful spirits exploding. He kept distancing himself from the vengeful spirit to prevent himself from getting caught up in the explosion. But the next moment, his pupils constricted. He saw Chen Zhao walk out of the violent explosion unscathed. Chains of hell. At this moment, countless vengeful spirits fused together. Their spirit bodies twisted and transformed, forming huge black chains. The black chains wrapped around Chen Zhao. On the other end of the chains, countless vengeful spirits were tugging at them. Have you studied in Japan before? These moves of yours seem very Japanese. Chen Zhao was tightly bound, but his casual attitude made Sickle's heart palpitate. Tear him apart. Sickle roared. Countless vengeful spirits pulled at the chains. Perhaps they'd been tortured by poverty and hunger when they were alive. But they'd been slaughtered. Their resentment made them even stronger than when they were alive. Plus, there were so many of them. Almost no one could fight them in terms of strength. Except Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao spread his arms and shattered the black chains. Countless vengeful spirits were shattered. Chen Zhao grinned. He raised his right arm and rubbed his fist. My right arm feels a little thirsty. Hungry. Sickle was confused and couldn't react. Chen Zhao's right palm suddenly opened into a mouth. Then a terrifying suction force came from the mouth. Countless vengeful spirits were sucked into the mouth while wailing and struggling. Sickle's scalp went numb. What was he doing? He was devouring the vengeful spirits. Devouring the vengeful spirits that even he didn't dare to touch. The dark clouds in the sky started thinning. The number of vengeful spirits was decreasing rapidly. Chen Zhao estimated that he devoured around 300,000 to 400,000 vengeful spirits. This was pretty much the mouth of gluttony's limit. Chen Zhao pointed his palm at the sky. A beam of black light shot out from the mouth of gluttony. The black light pierced through the sky. A ring-shaped hole was blasted in the dark clouds that had covered the sky. Sickle's eyeballs almost popped out. Even with the Grim Reaper's scythe, he couldn't attack like Chen Zhao. The vengeful spirits in the sky were in complete chaos. They were formed from crazy vengeful spirits. But they also had fear. Right now, Chen Zhao was the one who made their fear win over their crazy vengeful spirits. Sickle hurriedly used the Grim Reaper's scythe to appease the vengeful spirits. But suddenly, he realized that they were 100 times harder to control than before. Less than 1% of the vengeful spirits could be appeased. The strongest and craziest vengeful spirits had completely lost control. The powerful vengeful spirits started attacking indiscriminately. It wasn't just Chen Zhao. Even Sickle himself was attacked. Unmoved, Chen Zhao stood where he was. The vengeful spirits could attack however they wanted. As for Sickle, he was clearly flustered. There were too many vengeful spirits. They were so huge that it made one feel despair. For the first time, Sickle felt fear at the power he controlled. The power that he'd once been proud of didn't help him defeat the enemy. Instead, it hurt him. Chapter 2255. Fortunately, the wraiths were only violent. They didn't have a clear target. They were just attacking everything. Chen Zhao also attacked, and so did the scythe. Their own kind attacked too. Right now, Scythe was in a complete mess. He couldn't even protect himself, let alone continue attacking Chen Zhao. Scythe didn't have enough power to suppress and pacify the frightened wraiths. All his control over wraiths came from the Grim Reaper's scythe. But the Grim Reaper's scythe wasn't omnipotent. If the Grim Reaper's scythe could control all the spirits, then Chen Zhao only needed to take the scythe to hell and he could control billions of souls. This was simply impossible. The Grim Reaper's scythe had a limit. Chen Zhao didn't know the exact number. But the wraiths in this space were definitely much more than what the Grim Reaper's scythe could control. If these wraiths were muddle-headed and didn't have any consciousness, then everything would be fine. But once they became restless, Scythe would be in trouble. Go away. You damn things, come here. Scythe waved the Grim Reaper's scythe in his hand. But the wraiths couldn't be controlled at all. They were still madly attacking every individual they could see. Scythe glanced at Chen Zhao in the midst of his busy schedule. He was sure now. That guy couldn't be defeated at all. So many wraiths were attacking him. But he didn't defend or dodge at all. The wraiths couldn't even touch him. They weren't on the same level at all. It was funny that Scythe had clashed with Chen Zhao in the beginning because they wore the same clothes. Of course, he wanted to kill Chen Zhao later to keep his secret. But Scythe realized it too late. Scythe looked around. Since he couldn't beat Chen Zhao, he had to find a way out. But looking at the current situation, he couldn't escape at all. Chen Zhao was too strong. Scythe and the guy fighting Scythe have disappeared for half an hour. I've heard that the Scythe has only been used a few times in the past. Whenever it encountered a strong enemy, the Scythe would disappear together with the enemy. I think the Scythe must have pulled the enemy into some unknown space, AI Nancy said. Then who do you think will win? Of course it's the Scythe. There's no doubt about it, AI Nancy said affirmatively. Do you know a lot about scythes? I once followed Mr. Wen to the ruins of a scythe battle, so I know how terrifying he is. It's almost impossible for humans to defeat him. Are you saying that even Celestial Master Zhang and the 23rd Blood Mary are no match for him? That's not the case. Zhang Tianshi and the 23rd Blood Mary's powers are already comparable to the legendary gods, so it's not an exaggeration to call them gods who walk on earth. I think even a monster like Sickle wouldn't stand a chance against Zhang Tianshi and the 23rd Blood Mary. That's right. AI Nancy said, but Scythe won't fight with them. Looking at all of Scythe's actions in the past, he has always been very cautious. He will not take the initiative to provoke those who are stronger than him, and he prefers to plot everything in the shadows. Suddenly, a crack appeared on the battlefield. That fissure came very suddenly. It was deep and dark, and he couldn't see what was inside. But soon, the crack began to change. The first thing that came out of the crack was a terrifying howl. It was the despair of countless vengeful spirits. Then, the vengeful spirits rushed out of the crack like a flood. Ha! Scythe is out. Just then, everyone saw a figure holding a scythe rush out of the crack with the vengeful spirits. Looks like Scythe won. The result didn't surprise them too much. Wasn't it a natural result? Scythe was the leader of the 10 villains. Wait, suddenly, the Black Soul realized something. He looks like he's running. Everyone saw Scythe's expression. Panic, fear, confusion, and despair. Just then, another figure rushed out of the crack. The figure was too fast. In the blink of an eye, it was before Scythe. Scythe raised the Grim Reaper's scythe and wanted to fight back. But the next moment, the person grabbed Scythe's wrist with one hand and strangled Scythe with the other. Chen Zhao grabbed Scythe's neck. Do you know why I didn't kill you in the alternate dimension? Scythe couldn't breathe from the choking. It was the first time in his life that he felt suffocating. When he heard Chen Zhao's words, he suddenly realized. Chen Zhao knew about the Grim Reaper scythe, but he didn't know how to use it. He didn't kill Scythe in the alternate dimension because he seemed to have left him a way out. He wanted him to open the entrance to the alternate dimension. When he opened the crack, it would be his true death. This was also why Chen Zhao didn't kill him in the alternate dimension. Scythe struggled, but he couldn't break free from Chen Zhao's hand. Instead, Chen Zhao's strength increased a little. Crack! Sickle saw Chen Zhao break his wrist with brute force. His Grim Reaper scythe fell into Chen Zhao's hand. The moment the Grim Reaper scythe left his hand, all the vengeful spirits lost their last restraints. Roar! Countless vengeful spirits were surging in all directions. Rumble! The vengeful spirits rampaged. No matter what stood in their way, they would destroy everything. Chen Zhao raised the scythe. A few vengeful spirits charged over and pounced on Scythe, tearing at him. In less than 10 seconds, Scythe was gnawed to nothing by the vengeful spirits. In the end, this evil person still died at the hands of the people he'd killed in the past. Of course, some vengeful spirits charged at Chen Zhao too, but they were destroyed before they could get near him. Go! AI Nancy cried out in surprise because they were too close to the center of the battlefield. A large number of vengeful spirits spread toward them. Chen Zhao had sensed AI Nancy and the others long ago, but he didn't care who they were. Holding the Grim Reaper's scythe, Chen Zhao wanted to control the uncontrollable vengeful spirits. But the Grim Reaper's scythe didn't react at all. Looks like we're in big trouble. Chen Zhao felt awkward. Using the Grim Reaper's scythe was more troublesome than he'd imagined. And Blackie wasn't with him now. He couldn't learn it even if he wanted to. More and more vengeful spirits charged out of the crack. Without any restraints, they spread to a wider area. Soon, the entire street was covered by vengeful spirits. Chapter 2256. Soon, the vengeful spirits covered the entire desolate market. Chen Zhao had destroyed hundreds of thousands of vengeful spirits in that alternate space. But there were still more than 1 million of them surging out from the spatial crack. Thankfully, this was desolate market. 1 million vengeful spirits was a terrifying number. But now that they'd completely dispersed, their destructive power was much weaker. Moreover, this place lacked everything, but there was no shortage of ghost hunters. Chen Zhao looked at the hordes of vengeful spirits. They'd gradually calmed down. The calmness was relative. They just didn't attack each other anymore. But they were still wantonly destroying and attacking. Even Chen Zhao had to face their attacks. Although it was Chen Zhao's fault, he planned to wash his hands of it. He'd act like nothing had happened. Chen Zhao put away the Grim Reaper's scythe and turned to leave. At the moment, the entire desolate market was in chaos. After all, such a large number of vengeful spirits had suddenly appeared. Everyone was caught off guard. Wendy, what's going on? Zhang Tianyi criticized Wendy. Where did so many vengeful spirits come from? Don't tell me you don't know. After all, he didn't know the whole story. Naturally, he thought that Wendy had arranged it. Or maybe it had something to do with Wendy. After all, it was impossible to bring such a large number of vengeful spirits in. If it wasn't arranged beforehand, Zhang Tianyi couldn't think of any other possibilities. But this time, he'd really wronged Wendy. Wendy looked at the vengeful spirits flying in the sky. Every now and then, a few blind ones would run in front of them and walk around. Of course, they'd be taken care of. The number of vengeful spirits was too large. They were so large that they'd changed the spiritual energy here. Even Kelly and Evelyn could see the vengeful spirits. At first, the two girls were trembling in fear. But soon, they realized that these vengeful spirits weren't even cannon fodder in front of Zhang Tianyi and Wendy. I really don't know what's going on. You really don't know. I don't know. The appearance of these vengeful spirits has nothing to do with me, Wendy explained forcefully. Although Zhang Tianyi still didn't believe him, at least he didn't continue asking. Don't let me catch someone messing around, Wendy said, gritting his teeth. He felt that everything in this battle of the Holy Glory trial was really not going well. It seemed like trouble would come knocking at his door at any time. All sorts of things could happen at any time. This made him very angry. More importantly, he didn't even know what was going on. If we include the mausoleum of Theodosius I and the sewer entrance that we just explored, it means that 2 ancient seals have been unlocked. So many vengeful spirits suddenly appeared. Could it be one of the seals? Wendy speculated. The sudden appearance of these vengeful spirits really has nothing to do with you. Until now, Zhang Tianyi still suspected that it was Wendy's doing. Although Zhang Tianyi believed that Wendy would not make a mistake of principle. But this did not mean that he completely trusted Wen's character. Wen himself was an alchemist. As long as one was an alchemist, they would have their crazy side. Who knew if he would take advantage of his position to conduct some unspeakable experiments? He even suspected that the two unlocked seals that had appeared earlier had something to do with Wendy. But he didn't have any evidence to prove his suspicions. If there's a third or fourth seal, we had better think of a way to get to the scene before the others unlocked it and stop the seals from being unlocked. From the current signs, if the seals are unlocked, we'll be in even more trouble, and it might even turn into a major incident. Then we'll have to rearrange the clues we have, Wendy said. Zhang Tianyi nodded. Right now, they were like headless flies, running around aimlessly. Without a clue, without a goal. Based on their current efficiency, they were not able to do anything. Even if there was a conspiracy, they couldn't stop it. There are currently 2 suspects, the Hermit Order and the 10 heinous disciples, Wendy continued. The 10 heinous disciples are definitely involved, but we don't know if they're related to the Hermit Order. They shouldn't be. My disciple is currently closely monitoring the Hermit Order members. They wouldn't have the time to commit the crime, Zhang Tianyi replied. In other words, this time was planned by the 10 heinous disciples, Wendy said. If this was planned by the leader of the 10 heinous disciples, then we'd better raise the alarm level. Even Zhang Tianyi didn't dare to be careless when facing the schemes of the 10 heinous disciples. Suddenly, Zhang Tianyi thought of something. Right, assuming that the wasteland market was created to hide the seals, would we be able to find any clues from the ancient books in Istanbul? I do have a lot of ancient books in my lab, but I can't be sure if we'll be able to find any clues from them. We don't have any clues right now, so we can only start with that. Then let's go back now and look in my library. After discussing with Wendy, Zhang Tianyi and Wendy made their decision. Kelly followed behind them. Although she was an ordinary person, she was still able to control herself. Although she was a normal person, after spending half a day with them, she more or less had an idea. Furthermore, she knew all the clues that Zhang Tianyi and Wendy had. Assuming that these seals are interrelated, then they certainly wouldn't be randomly placed. The positions between them should be able to be analyzed and calculated, Kelly said. Your idea is not wrong, but you don't understand magic arrays. The positions of some magic arrays are very complicated, not symmetrical or regular as you think. Can't your magic solve it? Kelly asked. For example, magic like prophecy, can't you do it? No, Wendy shook his head. Wendy shook his head. The method you're talking about is 10 times more difficult than us randomly looking for it now. Kelly and Evelyn were taken to a building. Wendy's lab was in the building. The group went straight to Wendy's treasury. At first, Kylie thought she would see a dark, damp, and messy lab. But when she came to Wendy's lab, she found that Wendy's lab was much better than she had imagined. It was clean, tidy, and orderly. However, they were the only ones in the huge lab. Passing through the lab, the group was taken to a library. All of Wendy's books were here. How are we going to find so many books? Wendy, do you know any books that record the wasteland market? This secret mark doesn't belong to the same system as the previous marks, so it might not have been discovered yet. Kelly stepped hard on the brick floor. She was very rhythmic. Some places were heavy, some places were light. After a dozen steps, a secret compartment popped out from the wall. There was a box in the compartment. Wen stepped forward and picked up the box, eagerly opening it. There were 2 books sealed with a secret technique. Wendy quickly figured out the sealing magic in the book. One spell was used to preserve books from decay. The other one was used to restrict outsiders from opening the book. However, these 2 spells were just a piece of cake for Wendy. Wen opened the book without any hindrance. The light in Wen's eyes suddenly became clear. Finally, the truth he was seeking finally surfaced at this moment. These 2 books were left behind by his ancestors. Wen stood there and flipped through the books for 30 minutes. Zhang Tianyi was not in a hurry. He just waited. Finally, Wen closed the book. Did you find any clues? Zhang Tianyi asked. I already know the whole truth, Wen said, and I Nander's identity. Ha! What identity does she have? Her ancestor was also one of the builders of the wasteland market, the descendant of the great craftsman Warwick. No wonder she knows so much information that I don't. So what is her ultimate goal? The remains of the sun god in Olympian mythology, Wen said with a gloomy face. The remains of the sun god. She wants to resurrect the god. Not resurrection. She just wants to get the body of the god. As for how they are going to use it, I don't know yet. Then do you know where their next goal is? The seal that seals the remains of the sun god is the four seasons magic of Norse mythology. At present, we already know the location of two seals, so it is not difficult to deduce the location of the remaining two seals. Using the magic of Norse mythology to seal the gods of Greek mythology. Is there a grudge between these two mythological systems? They have nothing to do with each other. Wen shook his head and said, it's just that the ancestors felt that it was suitable, so they used the magic of Norse mythology to seal the sun god. And it's not a god, just the remains of a god. Mr. Wen, Mr. Zhang, do gods really exist in this world? Maybe not now, but in ancient times, they did exist. That is to say, I have a chance to witness a god. There won't be a chance. Neither I nor Celestial Master Zhang will allow this to happen. But, didn't you say that it's just the remains of a god? For anyone, the remains of a god are a weapon, a terrible weapon. The ancients knew this, so they sealed the remains of the god with a seal. The entire wasteland market can be said to be built for this purpose. Do you think we will allow the remains of a god to reappear in the world? Well, Kelly still felt that it was a pity. She had seen a lot of things today. Almost every one of them was beyond her knowledge. If she could see a god today, even if it was the remains of a god, it would be an unexpected gain for her. Unfortunately, neither Zhang Tianyi nor Wen was in the mood to broaden her knowledge. We'd better act quickly now, Wen said. From the clues I found, those vengeful spirits did not appear after the seal was unlocked, but the result of someone's actions, probably the work of the 10 evildoers. At present, we don't know their purpose for this step, but we can't let the situation continue to deteriorate. If we really let them control the remains of the sun god, then it will really evolve into a big event. Chapter 2258. Not long after Chen Zhao left the crime scene, Bifla found him. Where did you go? Bifla asked. I expanded my senses a few times but couldn't find you. Then just now, you suddenly appeared in my range. Weren't you in Desolate Market? Chen Zhao pointed at the wraiths in the sky. I encountered a rather troublesome enemy and killed him. These wraiths are because. Bifla wasn't too surprised. He knew Chen Zhao's abilities. Especially after reaching Shangqing State, he understood Chen Zhao's abilities even better. In terms of combat ability, even if he was 10 times stronger, he still wouldn't be Chen Zhao's match. Of course, Chen Zhao was only strong in combat. In other aspects, even 10 Chen Zhao couldn't compare to him. Do you know who he is? No. He said he's very famous. His name is Scythe. Have you heard of him? Yes, I've heard of him. He's indeed famous. Very famous, actually, Bifla answered calmly. That famous? Basically, he's a big boss in movies and TV shows. I think so too. Anyway, his magic tends to be evil. Didn't you get any spoils from him? Chen Zhao took out the Grim Reaper scythe. I stole his weapon. This isn't a living weapon. Bifla immediately saw something wrong. The living probably can't use it. My friend has one too. I'll ask him how to use it later. You really have a lot of friends. Bifla looked up at the wraiths in the sky. Since Bifla had appeared, they'd been attacked by more than 10 waves of wraiths. Some were alone, while others were in groups. These wraiths had covered the entire desolate market. You've caused a lot of trouble for the participants of the Battle of Holy Glory, Bifla said. I don't think so. There's a lot of wraiths, but they're too scattered. If they can focus on attacking a team, it might cause a lot of trouble. But no one's controlling them now and they're spread across such a large area. Even if a team encounters dozens of wraiths, it might not be a problem. If a single person encountered dozens of wraiths, it might be dangerous. But now, the Battle of Holy Glory was mostly in groups. Moreover, they were all elites among spiritualists. No matter how one looked at it, it wouldn't be troublesome for them to deal with tens of vengeful spirits. Some of these vengeful spirits are extremely powerful. Just now, I met a pair of male and female vengeful spirits. Their strength is not to be underestimated. Since I can meet them, the other teams can definitely meet them too. Is that so? I didn't notice. Chen Zhao indeed didn't notice anything, mainly because a large number of vengeful spirits had been rampaging there. Chen Zhao couldn't tell who was stronger and who was weaker. Chen Zhao was also a bit worried about his team. Just as Bifla said. If their team encountered a few powerful vengeful spirits, they might not be able to defeat them. I have something to do, Chen Zhao said. Bye. The Supernatural Organization's team is over there in that direction. Stunned, Chen Zhao looked back at Bifla. I know you're worried about your team. Bifla said indifferently, moreover, the entire barren land bazaar is now in chaos because of you. Even if you secretly make a move, no one might notice. Moreover, from the current signs, Celestial Master Zhang and Wendy will be busy and won't have time to pay attention to you. What could possibly happen to them? Isn't it just the seal we opened earlier? The first one, Theodosius I's tomb, wasn't the seal they consciously opened. But the second seal, the sevenfold door in the sewer, was definitely related to them. Do you know what's going on with those two seals? No, but it's probably not a small matter. Whatever, let's not care about them. I'll go see how my men are doing. I saw them on my way here. I think they got into a fight with another team. Did they win or lose? Chen Zhao asked immediately. They're about the same in power. I don't think there'll be a winner, Bifla said. Bifla said, I'll wait for you here. Go take a look at your team and then come find me. Why? Chen Zhao asked. We don't have to work together. I found the third seal. Are you sure you don't want to take a look? You're not thinking of breaking the third seal, are you? Do you think Zhang isn't busy enough? I'm not planning on breaking the seal. I just want to see if I can help. Even if Bifla said it openly, Chen Zhao didn't think that Bifla was really going to help. Chen Zhao's most optimistic guess was that Bifla was just watching. Would he help solve the problem? If it didn't involve him, he wouldn't help. Chen Zhao had seen through Bifla long ago. Bifla was the same type of person as him. He wouldn't care about things that didn't concern him. If I have time, I'll think about coming and meeting you. With that, Chen Zhao turned and left. Chen Zhao was rather fast. He went in the direction Bifla pointed. In a few minutes, he sensed a few familiar presences. When Chen Zhao found the Supernatural Organization's team, they were fighting with another team. To be honest, in the past, Chen Zhao had always thought that his team was already the top. But in the Battle of Holy Glory, he'd seen too many outstanding teams and genius spiritualists. The supernatural organization's team didn't have a clear advantage among them. Even Gaia, who was the most powerful of the 10, didn't stand out here. There were too many geniuses here. Chen Zhao watched the battle between the two teams. If it was just a battle like this, Chen Zhao wouldn't help no matter who won. He didn't bring his team here to help them win. Instead, he wanted to prove their strength. Gaia had already transformed into a dragon. Her opponent was a spiritualist with the bloodline of a magical beast, a hill giant. In terms of size, Gaia's infant draconic dragon was clearly inferior to his opponent's hill giant. But Gaia wasn't without an advantage. She could fly. Her opponent couldn't compare. Chen Zhao looked at the other side of the battlefield. Jalanash and another elementalist were fighting. Their magic systems were similar. Their elements were similar too. Their magic power was similar too. So, it was hard to tell who would win. Both were like magic cannons. They kept shooting spells at each other from a distance. Looks like my worries were unnecessary, Chen Zhao murmured. They can already take care of themselves. Chapter 22:59. Just as the two sides were fighting fiercely, a third team entered the fray. Let's go. There's a bunch of terrifying guys. The third team was not here to start a fight. They were running for their lives, with hundreds of wraiths following behind them. The hundreds of wraiths were not to be underestimated. Each of them was extremely ferocious. If it were an ordinary spiritualist, a few of them would probably be able to take down one of them. If it were these top-notch spiritualists, each of them could deal with a dozen of them. But no matter how strong they were, they could not deal with hundreds of them at the same time. These wraiths were mixed together because they were similar in strength. Their remaining IQ allowed them to understand that if they fought alone, they would most likely be annihilated. This was the wolf effect of living creatures. If an individual's strength was not enough to ensure their safety, they would choose to gather together. When the external threat disappeared, they would start killing each other again. Quantitative change led to qualitative change. This applied to wraiths as well. When they approached, the two teams could not help but stop fighting. Everyone had a solemn expression. In an instant, everyone was swaying in the torrent formed by the wraiths. No one could face such a large number of wraiths alone. It could be said that with such a large number of wraiths, it was not impossible to block them if one had prepared a defensive line in advance and had a certain level of strength. But now, they were completely unprepared, and it came so suddenly. When faced with the large number of wraiths, they were all flustered. With Gaia's fiery temper, she directly spewed a dragon's breath at the wraiths in her young dragon form. The dragon's breath directly ignited more than 10 wraiths, who wailed and screamed in pain. But Gaia's attack did not bring about any strategic results. Instead, it attracted more wraiths to attack. Those wraiths directly pounced on Gaia. 1, 2, 3. In the beginning, Gaia could still directly flap her wings and limbs to slap the evil wraiths away. But as more and more wraiths came, she was unable to withstand them and was directly pushed to the ground. The wraiths frantically tore at her body. Just then, Norma's reinforcements arrived. A nightmare beast stepping on green flames stepped on the air and came over. This nightmare beast with green flames was Norma's transformation. The hellfire burning on its body made it difficult for the vengeful spirits to approach. When the shapeshifter landed beside Gaia, it stomped its front hooves heavily on the ground, and a circle of green flames spread out. It ignited the vengeful spirits on Gaia's body and forced the surrounding vengeful spirits away. However, the nightmare that Norma had transformed into wasn't invincible. She had to consume a lot of magic power to maintain the burning of hellfire. From its appearance, it looked like a huge wild boar. It was the one that had attracted countless vengeful spirits. After it attracted the vengeful spirits, it would use its nose to sniff them. Then it would absorb large amounts of vengeful spirits. Where did this thing come from? How come I didn't notice it before? Bifla couldn't figure it out either. With their senses, there was no reason they couldn't notice such a huge stone beast. Most spiritualists couldn't do anything to this kind of super monster. But the stone beast wasn't interested in the nearby spiritualists. It was only interested in vengeful spirits. It moved at a seemingly slow speed. At the same time, it hummed. Just then, Zhang Tianyi and Wendy arrived. Zhang Tianyi's expression was serious. "Wendy, what's going on?" The eye of the seal of autumn is called the suppressor. It used to maintain its power by sacrificing souls and then maintain the seal for a long time. But in the past 200 years, because of the information gap, it hasn't received any sacrifices. Now, it's awakened by the large amount of vengeful spirits outside. Chapter 2260. In other words, the suppressor is the seal itself. Zhang Tianyi asked. "We don't have to attack it." "It won't attack the living, but it can't go too far away from the seal," Wendy said with a serious expression. Wendy said with a serious expression, "It is now moving away from the sealed land. I now understand the intentions of the 10 villains. They deliberately released so many vengeful spirits to wake up the suppressor and then lure it away from the sealed land." Zhang Tianyi also thought of this possibility. Perhaps even Scythe himself did not expect that his death would accidentally trigger this situation. He had died a worthy death. As the leader of the 10 villains, he died in Chen Zhao's hands before he could even be used. He felt wronged. If he hadn't attacked Chen Zhao first, he would have died. If he hadn't attacked Chen Zhao first, Chen Zhao might not have killed him first. At the same time, AI Nancy and the others in another direction were also surprised. They'd found Sickle this time so that he could use the vengeful spirits he was best at to lure the suppressor out and then lure it out of the seal. They didn't expect Sickle to still be able to use his original abilities after his death. "I didn't expect Sickle's death to have such an effect." A relieved smile appeared on AI Nancy's face. Sickle wasn't their leader. In fact, they weren't even partners. Sickle was actually hired by them, like Nightmare Leopard, who was ranked 7th among the 10 villains. To put it bluntly, Sickle was just a flag. But Sickle's death still caused a huge loophole in their plan. They'd thought that their plan was going to fail. They didn't expect that even though Sickle was dead, the vengeful spirits he controlled still completed his mission. Now, Wendy and Zhang Tianyi had a headache. Stop the suppressor. That would be the same as attacking it. The suppressor wouldn't attack the living, but that didn't mean it was a good kid. Zhang Tianyi evaluated the suppressor's strength. Very strong. But that was it. If they really fought, he was confident that he could blast this 100,000-ton beast into pieces within 10 minutes. But the problem now was that the suppressor was the key to the seal. If he killed it, it would be equivalent to personally undoing the seal. But if he ignored it, it wouldn't attack the living. However, it would be attracted by the vengeful spirit and leave the area of the seal. Once it left the range of the seal, it would be no different from breaking the seal. "Wend, do you have a way to restrain its actions without killing it?" "It can't be helped. As the core of the seal of autumn, the suppressor is immune to most spells and binding spells. In other words, we can only fight it head-on." "Yes." Wenda nodded solemnly. "I'll try and see if I can drive it back," Zhang Tianyi said. He did not have much confidence. If this was a magical beast that was afraid of death, Zhang Tianyi could use his unparalleled strength to directly threaten it. However, the suppressor was different. It was not a magical beast. At the same time, it was not a living being. It had a soul, but no feelings. Therefore, Zhang Tianyi wasn't sure if he could scare it. Zhang Tianyi's figure moved and floated down in front of the suppressor. Suppressor, return to your post. You shouldn't leave your post. Zhang Tianyi said righteously, but the only response he got was the suppressor's giant claw. The suppressor wasn't attacking him, it was just walking normally. Seeing that he couldn't communicate with the suppressor, Zhang Tianyi's face darkened. Seems like I can only take action. Purple cloud lightning, archaic sword. A bolt of purple lightning descended from the sky and landed in front of Zhang Tianyi. Zhang Tianyi reached out and grabbed. The purple lightning turned into a purple sword. Zhang Tianyi touched the purple sword. The sword's edge shone with a purple luster. The suppressor saw Zhang Tianyi's imposing aura and opened its mouth to spit out a blue torrent at Zhang Tianyi. The suppressor devoured countless vengeful spirits, and what it released was also a soul attack. However, it was different from the scythe, which could only use the basic vengeful spirit charge. The blue torrent that the suppressor spat out was a high-level torrent of souls. Its power was incomparable to a normal vengeful spirit charge. Zhang Tianyi saw the torrent coming straight at him, but he didn't dodge. He swung the purple sword in a circle, formed a hand seal, and pointed at the torrent of souls. The purple sword released a purple bolt of lightning and directly collided with the torrent of souls. In an instant, a purple and blue ring of light exploded in the sky. The rainbow light was more dazzling than any magic spell. The surrounding teams that had been attracted by the vengeful spirits and the suppressor's huge body were all mesmerized by the dazzling rainbow light. It was powerful and dazzling, frightening and dispiriting. The torrent of souls was crushed by the purple lightning. However, the purple lightning didn't stop. It still charged at the suppressor with unstoppable power. Boom! With a loud sound, the purple lightning struck the suppressor's head. The suppressor was instantly knocked to the ground. The moment the huge body fell, the impact produced directly shook the entire street into ruins. But soon, the suppressor stood up again. Old Zhang is indeed strong. Chen Zhao watched Zhang Tianyi and the suppressor fight from afar. It was his first time seeing Zhang Tianyi fight so seriously. He used at least half of his strength. Even Chen Zhao wasn't sure that he could take that attack unscathed. The purple lightning seemed to be a lightning spell, but Chen Zhao vaguely felt danger. Anyway, Chen Zhao didn't dare to take that attack head-on with his body. Moreover, the old man definitely hadn't used his full strength. Chen Zhao felt that if he did, he really wouldn't be able to take one attack. Of course, Chen Zhao was sure that old Zhang wouldn't be able to take one of his punches either. Zhang Tianyi didn't know that Chen Zhao was nearby, nor did he know what Chen Zhao was thinking. Gray Style 9 Techniques, Demon Vanquishing 1,000 Tricks. Zhang Tianyi used another technique. He casually tossed the purple sword and it turned back into purple lightning. Then, the purple lightning turned into a huge dharma. It didn't seem real, but it was filled with majesty. The dharma held one hand in front of its chest and raised the other in a slashing posture. Break! The dharma's right arm chopped down vertically. Hiss! In an instant, the ground was torn apart, and the cracks extended for thousands of meters. So strong, Chen Zhao exclaimed. Bifla nodded with a serious expression. Bifla was also a sect leader. In the past, Bifla hadn't even reached Shangqing state. Now, he was also a Shangqing state master, but the difference between him and Zhang Tianyi wasn't that big. Zhang Tianyi really had a lot to brag about. Chapter 2261. As the publicly recognized top human expert in the supernatural world, Zhang Tiany's strength didn't need to be recognized by others. But not many people had actually seen him fight. There were many people who had witnessed this battle. But those lucky enough to see it were also in danger. Not everyone had the right to watch the battle between Zhang Tiany and the suppressor. The battle between the two was like a raging fire. Even Chen Zhao and Baifla were amazed by the scene. They were amazed by Zhang Tiany's strength. Even if Zhang Tiany didn't use his full strength, it was still shocking. Although Zhang Tiany had displayed a powerful and overwhelming strength, it was not enough to stop him. But he was facing an opponent that didn't know fear or pain. The suppressor wasn't afraid of Zhang Tiany at all. Even though it was forced to retreat, it still attacked Zhang Tiany without hesitation. Celestial Master Zhang, it absorbed a lot of vengeful spirits. As long as the spiritual power isn't used up, it'll keep fighting, Wendy reminded Zhang Tiany from afar. Zhang Tiany had a headache. He'd seen many enemies like this. It claimed that it wouldn't fall as long as it had power. In fact, it wasn't hard to kill it before its power was used up. There was a very simple way, and that was to shatter one's bones. Zhang Tiany happened to know many ways to achieve this goal. But he couldn't do that to the suppressor. This was what gave him the biggest headache. Baifla, if it were you, how would you deal with that big monster? Celestial Master Zhang doesn't seem to want to kill the monster. He probably just wants to stop it. If it were me, I could only destroy it at most, not stop it. Baifla glanced at Chen Zhao. This should be the enemy you're best at dealing with, right? Indeed, Chen Zhao didn't deny this. He liked to deal with enemies that focused on physical attacks the most. But he wouldn't attack. What happened here had nothing to do with him. Baifla thought the same. He could watch, but he couldn't look for trouble. Under Zhang Tiany's powerful attacks, the suppressor still moved freely. No matter how Zhang Tiany destroyed its rock-like shell, it would recover in a short time. There were too many vengeful spirits for it to absorb and devour. Zhang Tiany's attack didn't slow it down for long. The suppressor was already at the edge of the seal's range. Zhang Tiany shouted, "Thousand tricks vanquishes the devil." Zhang Tiany's Dharma power condensed again, and he shouted again, "Shoulder throw." The Dharma idol grabbed suppressor and threw him over his shoulder. The 100,000-ton body of the suppressor crashed into the ground several hundred meters away. The earth was shaking, and even the space of the entire wasteland market was shaking. Everyone was dumbfounded by the fall. Baifla, have you watched Ultraman? The current scene looked like Ultraman beating up a small monster. Zhang Tiany was also panting heavily. He was forced to use the Dharma idol of heaven and earth as a wrestling technique. The Dharma idol of heaven and earth could be used for physical attacks. However, the heaven and earth Dharma idol only had a physical form, so the power of the spells released through the heaven and earth Dharma idol could increase by several times or even dozens of times. However, if one were to use the aspect of heaven and earth to launch a physical attack, it would consume several times the caster's magic power. Zhang Tiany was in the Shangqing realm. Even if he used the heaven and earth avatar to wrestle, his magic power would recover quickly. However, the consumption was greater than the recovery. It was like a long-range attacker fighting close combat with someone else. Zhang Tiany was a standard long-range attacker. It wasn't that he didn't know how to fight close combat, but that his level was lowered by several levels. Even so, he could still use the Dharma idol to suppress the suppressor. From this, one could see how terrifying his true strength was. As a pure melee fighter, Chen Zhao was also astonished when he saw Zhang's move. In terms of effect, Chen Zhao could do it too. With his strength, throwing the suppressor over his shoulder was a piece of cake for him. Even if the suppressor was 10 times heavier, he could still do it. However, Zhang Tianyi was clearly different. Everyone had their own specialties. Zhang Tianyi and Chen Zhao were two extreme examples. Of course, the two of them also had certain achievements in other fields. However, they were still weak. When the suppressor got up again, Zhang Tianyi used the Dharma idol to throw it over his shoulder again. He threw it back to the center of the seal. Zhang Tianyi panted even more and mumbled, "I can't do this. If this continues, I'll really die. If only that bastard Chen Zhao was here. He wouldn't have to go through so much trouble." Wait. Chen Zhao was in the desolate market now. He'd caused such a big commotion here. There was no reason for him not to come and watch. Zhang Tianyi floated in the air and suddenly made a hand seal. Heavenly Eye. Instantly, a vertical eye split open in the wrinkles between Zhang Tianyi's brows. This Heavenly Eye was a rather common spell in the Huaxia supernatural world. However, Zhang Tianyi's Heavenly Eye was an advanced version. Normal Heavenly Eye wouldn't open the Heavenly Eye. They could only see a trace of karma. However, Zhang Tianyi's Heavenly Eye directly opened the third Heavenly Eye. Through the amount of magical power used, he could see the result he wanted to see directly. However, it wasn't easy to find Chen Zhao. After all, Chen Zhao wasn't weaker than him. In terms of magical power alone, Chen Zhao was stronger. Zhang Tianyi immediately felt his magical power depleting rapidly. But an instant later, he saw Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao wasn't far from him and the desolate market wasn't big. Although Zhang Tianyi's consumption was great, it wasn't as great as he'd imagined. If this was the outside world, Zhang Tianyi would probably lose half his life to use the Heavenly Eye to find Chen Zhao. Fuck, this bastard is really watching. Zhang Tianyi cursed as he looked at the suppressor who'd stood up again. Outside the battlefield, Chen Zhao also felt Zhang Tianyi's actions. We've been discovered. Let's go. That old man wants a scapegoat, Chen Zhao said. We can't leave. Bifla shook his head. Can he stop me if I want to leave? Chen Zhao didn't believe it. But the next moment, he had to believe it. In the distance, Zhang Tianyi cast another spell. Borrow the power of heaven and earth. Move the stars. Come here. Whoosh, instantly, Chen Zhao felt the world spin and he disappeared from Bifla's sight. When he looked again, he realized he'd appeared in the middle of the battlefield. Zhang Tianyi was gone. There was only the suppressor before him. Celestial Master, hello. Bifla looked at Zhang Tianyi who'd suddenly switched places with Chen Zhao and bowed respectfully. Hey, Bifla, I haven't seen you in a few days and you've actually broken through the last step. You must have learned it from that kid, right? Yes. Thank you for your guidance, Celestial Master. Bifla nodded with a smile. Old man, you're not very kind. Since I gave you some pointers, you should return the favor no matter what. Why don't you come over and help me out while I'm fighting so hard? Zhang Tianyi said indignantly. Didn't you already pull Chen Zhao into the battlefield? That's not because of your help. It's because I'm more skilled. But Celestial Master, you seem to have forgotten to tell him to go easy. Chapter 2262. Oh no. Zhang Tianyi felt like his head was going to explode. He turned around and charged toward Chen Zhao and the suppressor. The distance was not far, probably less than a kilometer. At this moment, Zhang Tianyi in the bliss world felt an unprecedented distance. Chen Zhao had also recovered from the shock. He also saw Zhang Tianyi hurriedly turning around. Chen Zhao opened his mouth in Zhang Tianyi's direction. Zhang Tianyi couldn't hear Chen Zhao's words, but he could still read Qin Zhao's lips. You want me to be your fighter, right? Then I'll do as you wish. Qin Zhao turned to look at the suppressor. Dark assimilation. Instantly, Qin Zhao's body was covered in a layer of darkness. Both Qin Zhao and Bifla could tell that Zhang Tianyi had been showing mercy to the suppressor. Given Zhang Tianyi's strength, the suppressor would have been slain long ago. Therefore, after fighting for so long, it wasn't that Zhang Tianyi couldn't kill the suppressor, but that he couldn't. However, it was a limitation for Zhang Tianyi. But there were no restrictions on Qin Zhao. Zhang Tianyi didn't even have time to be proud of himself. At this moment, he was already filled with regret. He really shouldn't have pulled Qin Zhao into his possession so recklessly. Qin Zhao wasn't him. Qin Zhao had no sense of responsibility or civility. It was simply a daydream to hope that he would accommodate her. Zhang Tianyi was already halfway there, but he stopped in the next moment. Because he knew it was too late. Qin Zhao had already made his move. Go to hell. Terrifying power burst out from Qin Zhao's body. With unparalleled might, it poured into the body of the suppressor. It started from the suppressor's head and spread to his entire body. The suppressor was instantly destroyed and obliterated. Qin Zhao, do you know what you did? Didn't you want me to kill this big monster? Qin Zhao pretended to be confused. If I wanted to kill it, would I need you? Zhang Tianyi criticized Qin Zhao indignantly. The most hateful thing was that Qin Zhao clearly knew everything, but he had to play dumb in front of her. You didn't tell me anything. Are you blind? Qin Zhao's face darkened. Don't take advantage of your seniority. Zhang Tianyi was stunned for a moment, his face flushed with anger. Unfortunately, he didn't have a position to take now. He had forcefully dragged Qin Zhao into the battlefield without discussing it with him. This old man is a magnanimous person. I won't argue with you. Zhang Tianyi snorted stubbornly and turned to leave. More importantly, he couldn't do anything to Qin Zhao. Fight with Qin Zhao. The best outcome would be a lose-lose situation. The worst result was that he would be hung up and beaten. Zhang Tianyi knew his own strength, but he also knew how strong Qin Zhao was. That was why he wasn't confident. In particular, Qin Zhao's boundless vitality and almost unbreakable defense were especially strong. All of Zhang Tianyi's attacks were halved. Zhang Tianyi had also thought about how to deal with Qin Zhao if they fought. After much thought, the best way to deal with Qin Zhao was to seal him. However, a human's seal was too difficult. Sealing had a tendency. If it was sealing an enemy of a certain attribute, the effect would be very good. For example, an enemy of the darkness or holy attribute could be sealed for hundreds or even thousands of years. However, humans were neutral. They could be dark, or they could be holy. Therefore, the tendency of sealing spells would be greatly reduced. The effect of sealing other species for 100 years might only be a few years or decades for humans. If it was a normal person or Tongliao city, they would starve to death after a few years. But Zhang Tianyi was very sure that it was useless against Qin Zhao. Perhaps Qin Zhao would starve in the seal, but he definitely wouldn't starve to death. When Qin Zhao came out of the seal, it would be a great disaster for Zhang Tianyi. Zhang Tianyi knew that he couldn't outlive Qin Zhao. With his junior's strength and potential, he basically couldn't beat Qin Zhao. Therefore, Zhang Tianyi really didn't want to turn against Qin Zhao. Of course, Qin Zhao didn't want to turn against Zhang Tianyi either. The old man had too many dirty tricks. Who knew when he would be tricked? They were both wary of each other. Just then, a majestic pillar of light suddenly shot out from the huge pit where the suppressor had been hiding. The pillar of light soared into the sky, and surging energy poured out from the seal. 3. 3 seals have been opened. AI Nancy and the others were very excited. There was only 1 seal left. Their plan was unfolding in a way that exceeded their expectations, but they were unexpectedly back to square one. Theodosius I's tomb, the 7-fold door in the sewers, and the almost invincible suppressor. AI Nancy, don't you think it's strange? Opening each seal is part of our plan, but the process of opening each seal deviates from our plan, the Black Soul said. AI Nancy, who had been very excited a moment ago, fell into silence the next moment. The current situation seemed to have reached their expectations, but the process was rather strange. 1 accident, 2 accidents, and the 3rd was still an accident. With so many accidents added together, it wasn't an accident anymore. What are you trying to say? There's someone or a group of people who know our entire plan. They're using our plan to carry out their own plan. Their goal is very likely to also open the seal and obtain God's remains. You're saying that we have competitors? Maybe it's even worse, the Black Soul said. The Black Soul said, even we wouldn't dare to plot against Celestial Master Zhang, but the other party's plan included Celestial Master Zhang. They're either ignorant and fearless, or they have the confidence to do so. Moreover, we're still in the open. Then what should we do? AI Nancy turned to look at the Black Soul. The joy he had felt before had completely vanished. AI Nancy didn't like this feeling. She didn't like being used and manipulated. There are 2 choices. 1 is to continue with the plan and wait until the 4th seal is opened so that we can obtain God's remains first. The second choice is to give up all the plans and sabotage the operation. The other party may be stronger than us. Perhaps all our actions are being watched by the other party. Instead of being manipulated by others, it's better to directly sabotage the entire plan. If we can't get it, we won't let the other party get it. No. AI Nancy immediately rejected. I've been lurking around Wend for so many years, and the implementation of the plan is now nearing its end. You want me to give up the plan? I don't have that much time to waste. And so far, all the guesses are just your guesses. They haven't been confirmed yet. Chapter 2263. Zhang Tianyi was pissed. Chen Zhao was even more pissed. He'd been dragged into the battle for no reason. However, he vaguely sensed an unusual aura. As for where this feeling came from, he couldn't say either. Bifla greeted Zhang Tianyi from afar and then left with Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao, what's wrong? Still mad at Celestial Master Zhang? No. I don't know if it's my imagination, but I feel something weird. We're both spiritualists. If we can feel it, then it can't be an illusion, Bifla said. What did you feel? I can't tell. I just feel that it's not coordinated, but I can't tell what it is. That's normal. Spiritualists are very sensitive, but some senses are just flashes of light, so it's hard to explain what it means. Then how can I be sure of what I feel? I can't help you with that. I feel that it's too mysterious. Also, it's up to the person to capture the flash of light. Others can't help either. Is there no way at all? I can't, but I don't know if Celestial Master Zhang has a way. Chen Zhao was a prideful person. He definitely wouldn't turn around and ask Zhang Tianyi for help. Celestial Master, what's wrong? Is it because that person killed the suppressor? Wendy looked at Zhang Tianyi, who had a serious expression. He'd seen the argument and conflict just now. That person had come with Bifla. And he knew Zhang Tianyi. It should be the Chen Zhao mentioned before. That terrifyingly powerful man. And he'd indeed displayed unparalleled power. Other than Zhang Tianyi, he'd never met anyone who could kill the suppressor in one move. But that person had done it. That kind of domineering power was something he'd never seen before. No. Zhang Tianyi shook his head. It's because I suddenly lost my mind. What do you mean? Wendy asked, confused. I know that bastard Chen Zhao too well, Zhang Tianyi said. No matter what, I would never drag him into the battle when I'm facing an enemy I can't kill. But that's exactly what I did just now. Wendy frowned. You mean, you're being controlled? Not control, but left and right. I don't understand. Is there anyone in this world who can control your mind? You may not have encountered some strange spells. Some spells are hard to detect, extremely difficult to defend against, or even impossible to defend against, and I suspect that I was hit by such a spell. What spell? Even you are unable to defend against it. In China, there is a system called the deadly occult door. Zhang Tianyi said, taking life doesn't mean killing or taking more of your life, but controlling your actions and controlling your fate. You're talking about the puppet technique, right? How could you be affected by the puppet technique? Of course it's not the puppet technique. The puppet technique is not even worth mentioning when compared to this life-taking technique. Zhang Tianyi paused. Everyone's words, actions, and decisions are similar to throwing darts. Whatever your dart hits on the target, you will react accordingly. The difference is that some actions have a larger area on the target, while some actions have a smaller area on the target. Do you understand what I'm saying? Wendy nodded. Zhang Tianyi's explanation was easy to understand. Plus, he was quick-witted, so he easily understood Zhang Tianyi's meaning. But this life-taking technique expands the target area that originally represented a small probability action into a high probability action. Wendy's eyes widened in surprise. Even for a veteran of the supernatural world like him, this was the first time he had heard of such a strange or even strange spell. Celestial Master, you mean someone cast a spell on you? I'm not sure right now, Zhang Tianyi said. Logically, I wouldn't make such a mistake, but I just had to do such a stupid thing, so I can't help but suspect that I was hit by this spell. I still find it a little hard to believe. Does that mean that once you master this spell, you can do whatever you want? Wendy shuddered at the thought of the consequences. If the other party controlled Zhang Tianyi and killed him, or committed some heinous crime, who could stop them? Zhang Tianyi rubbed his forehead. It's not as scary as you think. First of all, this kind of spell has certain requirements for the caster. Secondly, it can't be detected. Moreover, when this kind of spell is used on you and me, the effect is greatly reduced. Moreover, it needs to make use of a small, almost negligible possibility in my heart. Even if this possibility is expanded, it will almost never happen. But it can still happen, right? For example, because I had a dispute with you in the past, and then wanted to kill you at a certain moment, it just happened to be used by my enemy to increase this possibility. It was originally a 1 in a million possibility, but then it was doubled by the other party, becoming a 1 in 500,000 possibility. Do you need to worry about this probability? Have we had a dispute before? How come I don't remember? Celestial Master Zhang, I've always admired you very much, Wendy said hurriedly, as if Zhang Tianyi really could kill him. Zhang Tianyi rolled his eyes. Okay, enough nonsense. Now I need to confirm whether I really was hit by this spell or not. How can you be sure? Asked Wendy. He didn't have any good ideas in this regard. After all, this was the first time he had heard of this kind of spell. Just thinking about it made him feel scared. Do you have chicken blood, cat whiskers, cow's eyeballs, and sheep's dung in your lab? Wendy still didn't understand. These are all low-level materials. The so-called low-grade materials were things that could be easily obtained by ordinary people. There was no difficulty in obtaining them. However, these low-level materials could only be used to cast the most basic and common spells. In his opinion, Zhang Tianyi wouldn't use those low-level spells. In his opinion, Zhang Tianyi would only use those kinds of high-level and difficult spells. He couldn't possibly use those low-level spells. Zhang Tianyi glanced at Wenda's expression and more or less guessed what he was thinking. For me, there's no such thing as high or low spells, only useful and useless spells. For example, the spell I'm going to use, Nurturing. Nurturing. What a strange name. This spell not only has a strange name, but its effect is also very strange. It can make people lose their desire for an instant. Of course, it can instantly calm them down, but it can only last for 3 minutes. After 3 minutes, the effect will disappear. Wenda's face was full of confusion. The effect of this spell was indeed strange, and could even be said to be meaningless. And the duration was also very short. What was the use of this spell? And what did it have to do with Zhang Tianyi's current situation? Chapter 2264. This nurturing technique is also known as the Heaven Nurturing Technique. It's originally used to concentrate and calm one's qi and consolidate one's foundation. Basically, it's used on ordinary people. Of course, it can also be used on spirit controllers, but it's meaningless for spirit controllers. Zhang Tianyi said, however, there's another characteristic of nurturing. The user can't have any traces of other spells on their body. In game terms, as long as there's a buff on the body, no matter if it's a buff or a debuff, nurturing can't coexist. Hearing Zhang Tianyi's explanation, Wenda finally understood. However, although the effect of this nurturing spell was weak, its conditions were very overbearing. In layman's terms, the human body was a computer, and these spells were the software. However, to install the nurturing spell software, all other software had to be uninstalled. Of course, it didn't matter to ordinary people. Because ordinary people wouldn't have any buffs on their bodies. However, many spiritualists would habitually apply some buffs on their bodies. These buffs were all compatible. There was no rule that one couldn't apply another after being applied. When they returned to Wenda's laboratory, Kelly and Evelyn were waiting there. They wanted to go out with Zhang Tianyi and Wenda. However, because of the urgency of the situation, Zhang Tianyi and Wenda didn't have time to drag their feet. And they didn't dare to go out alone. The wasteland market outside was too dangerous for them. Therefore, they could only stay in the laboratory. However, Wenda didn't restrict their movements. In the laboratory, they could go anywhere they wanted. However, they found some fun here. They found the surveillance room. This surveillance room didn't monitor the building they were in, but the entire wasteland market. Here, they could see the entire wasteland market and the battle scenes of all the participants of the Battle of Holy Glory. However, there were hundreds of thousands of surveillance scenes in the entire wasteland market. It wasn't easy for them to find the scenes they wanted to see. However, among the selected scenes, they still found the battle scenes of some of the Battle of Holy Glory participants. The battles of those spiritualists were refreshing and broadened their horizons. After Zhang Tianyi and Wenda returned, they immediately came to their side. They knew that they could only survive here if they were obedient. As for the thoughts of revenge they had at the beginning, they had long since disappeared. The more they came into contact with, the more their worldview collapsed. The assassin abilities that they were so proud of in the past did not give them any advantages. Especially when facing a supreme existence like Zhang Tianyi. What they felt was powerlessness, humbleness, and insignificance. Zhang Tianyi's appearance was that of an old man. However, whenever an enemy that could threaten them appeared, he would transform into a godlike existence. They had never seen what a real god looked like. But in their eyes, Zhang Tianyi was a god. Wendy quickly prepared the spell-casting materials for Zhang Tianyi. Nurturing was not a difficult spell to begin with. It was a very low-level and simple spell. Wendy watched Zhang Tianyi cast the spell and instantly learned it. Zhang Tianyi cast the spell on himself and didn't cast it. I knew it. Zhang Tianyi raised his eyebrows. I really did get hit by the life-stealing strange door. Celestial Master, do you have a suspect? Wendy asked. Zhang Tianyi shook his head. This life-stealing strange door is treacherous and impossible to guard against. It's my first time seeing it, and I've only heard about it in the past. I don't even know the conditions to cast the spell and trigger it, so how can I have any clues? Nothing at all. I don't have any clues at the moment, but I'm sure that this spell only exists in Huaxia. Most spells or magic, be it in the east or the west, were similar or identical. However, a small portion of them were unique spells, and they were also isolated inheritances. Outsiders might not even have heard of them, let alone practiced them. Zhang Tianyi's expression was solemn. An invisible enemy was in the dark. Not only that, but he was also able to make him fall for it without anyone noticing. Anyone else would not be able to relax. Then what do we do now? Wendy was also in a dilemma. To be honest, in terms of strength, he wasn't bad. He couldn't compare to Zhang Tianyi, but compared to most spiritualists in the world, he was still in awe of them. However, in terms of schemes, he was clearly powerless. He spent most of his thoughts and wisdom on alchemy, so he didn't have any ideas about schemes. Otherwise, Anise wouldn't have been hiding beside him for so many years without him noticing. What if Zhang Tianyi tried it? Not to mention a few years, he would probably know what color Anise's underwear was after a few rounds of contact. Zhang Tianyi fell into deep thought. After a while, his lips curled into a smile. Done. You've thought of a way. Yes. Zhang Tianyi smiled. What do you need me to do? No need. Zhang Tianyi shook his head. Go to the surveillance room and find Qin Zhao. Him. It's the guy you saw before. It wasn't easy to find one person among hundreds of thousands of surveillance images. So, he had to ask Kelly and Evelyn to help. When he left, he was at this location. If he didn't run around randomly, he should be near this area. Search this area and its surroundings. That way, we can reduce the range. Zhang Tianyi couldn't confirm Qin Zhao's current location. After all, with Qin Zhao's abilities, he wouldn't even need a minute to go around the barren land bazaar. We found Bifla, but where's Qin Zhao? Where did he go? Zhang Tianyi found Bifla's tracks. He'd thought that Bifla and Qin Zhao would move together. In the end, Qin Zhao wasn't beside Bifla. At the moment, Bifla, who was in the surveillance room, had an idea. He gazed at the sky, a thoughtful expression on his face. The feeling of being monitored came very suddenly. In the surveillance room, Zhang Tianyi thought for a while. Continue looking for Qin Zhao. I'll be back soon. With that, Zhang Tianyi left the lab and went straight to Bifla's location. A while later, Zhang Tianyi arrived before Bifla. Celestial Master Zhang, were you monitoring me just now? Yes. Why isn't Qin Zhao beside you? Where did he go? Zhang Tianyi asked. Chapter 2265. Hearing Zhang Tianyi's words, Bifla's expression suddenly turned strange. What's wrong? Don't tell me something happened to him. I don't believe that Asterisk Shoal would be in trouble, Zhang Tianyi said confidently. Plus, no one in this barren land can harm him. He's gone, Bifla said. What? Zhang Tianyi stared at Bifla, dumbfounded. What do you mean gone? He ran away. He didn't run away, Bifla said helplessly. He was probably summoned by someone or some spell. Actually, he was also very confused about this. Chen Zhao had disappeared beside him. He had seen the entire process. But he had no idea what spell it was or who had cast it. Forcefully summoning Chen Zhao away. One had to know that an existence like Chen Zhao would be a catastrophe if he was replaced by a magical beast or magical creature of the same level. The price to summon a magical creature of this level was also very high. It would probably take tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of blood sacrifices to summon a magical creature of Chen Zhao's level. Chen Zhao was a human. Unless he had a contract with someone, the price to summon him would be even higher. Of course, this was Bifla's conjecture before he knew Chen Zhao's true strength. Summon him away. Are you sure? Zhang Tianyi clearly didn't believe that Chen Zhao would be summoned away. I'm not sure, Bifla said. I'm confused too. Zhang Tianyi sank into deep thought. He knew Chen Zhao better than Bifla. He knew how powerful Chen Zhao was. Summon Chen Zhao. First, destroy a small country, then kill all the people there and sacrifice their lives. And this was under the premise that Chen Zhao accepted the contract. If it were some evil creature or demon, they would definitely be happy to accept the summon. But Chen Zhao wouldn't accept it. Therefore, the price to successfully summon Chen Zhao would be unimaginably high. Because Zhang Tianyi had been through this, he knew the rules of summoning like the back of his hand. That was why he had such an expression of disbelief. The most likely possibility was that he hadn't been summoned away. He had been teleported away. Did Chen Zhao do anything strange before he left? What do you mean? If it's a summoning, the price is too high. In the real world, no one can pay such a high price, so the only possibility is that he was teleported away. Zhang Tianyi said, to teleport Chen Zhao away, one needs to be very powerful. If the other party has the power to teleport Chen Zhao away, then they can fight him head-on. So, the most likely possibility is that Chen Zhao did something that meets the predetermined conditions and was teleported away by force. Bifla thought for a moment, and a strange expression appeared on his face again. We picked up a magic lamp on the road. Is this behavior strange? Zhang Tianyi also revealed a strange expression. Are you sure you're not joking with me? No. I'm serious. Bifla shrugged helplessly. We did pick up a magic lamp, but it's more like a magic tool. Chen Zhao even tried to rub the magic lamp to summon the genie, but there was no reaction. Then he filled the lamp with magic power. While Bifla's words were unimaginable, thinking about it carefully, this behavior and method suited Chen Zhao's personality. If Chen Zhao had picked up such a magic lamp, he wouldn't even consider if it was dangerous or a trap. He would definitely try to summon the genie. That magic lamp is strange, Zhang Tianyi said, frowning. I'm not sure if Chen Zhao being teleported away has nothing to do with the magic lamp. Zhang Tianyi opened the heavenly eye between his brows. After looking around, he said, Chen Zhao's aura still lingers in the barren town. This means that he's still in the barren town. He should be trapped somewhere now. There's a place that can trap him. Bifla was in disbelief. Maybe he's not willing to come out. Zhang Tianyi knew Chen Zhao too well. As long as he was interested in something, he would probably stay. Even if there was a flood outside, he wouldn't care. Also, there are many secrets here that even Winder doesn't know. He's really not responsible enough as a manager, Bifla said. At this moment, a team walked over. They first saw two figures before them, but they couldn't see who they were. So, their first reaction was to be on guard. The team approached them carefully. However, when they saw the two people standing there, especially Zhang Tianyi, everyone was stunned for a moment. Celestial Master. Bifla and Zhang Tianyi turned their heads to look at the team that had appeared before them. Zhang Tianyi's gaze fell on the magic lamp in one of their hands. Where did you get that? Zhang Tianyi asked, pointing at the person. Celestial Master, this is the trophy we got when we defeated a cypress beast. The person couldn't help but become nervous. Let me see, Zhang Tianyi said. The person hesitated, but in the end, he still held the magic lamp with both hands and handed it to Zhang Tianyi. Zhang Tianyi took the magic lamp and realized that it had already been injected with magic. You guys injected a lot of magic, right? Everyone's expression was somewhat awkward, because all 10 of them had tried to inject magic into the magic lamp. But they had only injected less than a quarter. Of course, one reason was that they hadn't used all their strength. After all, they were in the barren town and participating in the trial of the Battle of Holy Glory. If all their magic was injected, then they were likely to lose their combat effectiveness. Moreover, the amount of mana required for the magic lamp was simply too much. They couldn't pay too much to turn on this magic lamp when they weren't sure of the role of this magic lamp. That's why this magic lamp was in this state. About a quarter of their magic was injected, and they couldn't continue to inject it. And even if they said that all their magic was injected into it, they could only inject 3/4 of the full value at most, which was why they gave up on continuing. Zhang Tianyi directly injected his own magic power into it. The Chinese people called it magic power, and the Westerners called it magic power. In fact, they were essentially the same. The magic lamp that 10 people in the opposite team couldn't fill, Zhang Tianyi filled it directly in an instant. However, what Zhang Tianyi expected did not happen. Chapter 2266. Why isn't there a reaction? Zhang Tianyi turned his head and looked at Bifla. Bifla shrugged. I don't understand either. Celestial Master Zhang, bring the Qingjiang magic lamp to the lab. I'll study it. Wender contacted Zhang Tianyi through the communicator. Zhang Tianyi was helpless. His knowledge in this area was indeed far from Wender's. He brought it back to Wender's lab. Wendy immediately began to examine the magic lamp. How is it? Is there a result? This lamp can also be used to activate teleportation, but there's a condition. Only one mana source can be fully charged to activate the teleportation device. That's simple. Drain the mana you injected earlier and then inject it again. Don't tell me you can't do it. Of course, but it's not the only condition, Wender said. Wendy said, this is only the final device, not the only one. That is to say, before obtaining this magic lamp, other conditions need to be met. Can you deduce the required conditions? Wender shook his head. No. There's no pattern to these conditions, so I can't deduce them. Then can you activate the teleportation device in another way? Yes, but it needs time, Wender answered. How long? 3 to 5 days. I can't be sure yet. So, even the best result has to be after the second trial. Since I'm missing the previous conditions, I need to complete them in another way. 3 to 5 days is already the most optimistic estimate. Chen Zhao felt his body fall heavily onto the ground. His face was stuck to the smelly sewage on the ground. Chen Zhao wiped the water off his face. He didn't want to know what the sewage was made of. The air was hot and dry. There were many cracks on the ground. Faint red light flashed through the cracks. He seemed to be in the mouth of a volcano. The sky wasn't the sky either. Instead, it was a bottomless, hollowed-out rock layer above his head. There were also many cracks above his head. Lava or rocks fell from them every now and then. It looked like hell, but it wasn't hell. At first, when he'd been summoned, he'd thought that he'd been summoned by a friend from hell. But when he arrived, he realized that it wasn't hell. Chen Zhao kicked off and soared into the air. However, after making an arc in the air, it fell heavily to the ground. What's going on? You can't fly here. Chen Zhao was confused. Closing his eyes, he carefully sensed the surroundings and discovered that the heaven and earth spiritual energy here was extremely abundant. However, there seemed to be some sort of spiritual vortex in the air. Once he used his magic power to rise into the air, his magic power would cause a chain reaction with those spiritual vortexes, causing the balance of flight to be disrupted. What exactly is this place? Chen Zhao was even more confused. At this time, a few screams came from the sky. Then, a few figures descended from the sky. That scene was so familiar. He seemed to have fallen in the same way before. Those people were in a rather sorry state, and one of them seemed to have fallen quite heavily. After all, not everyone could take a fall. Those people were treating their companions. They were using holy light magic, which had outstanding healing effects. Soon, his companions' injuries were much better. One of the handsome blonde men turned his head and looked at Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao stood where he was. He didn't go far, but he didn't get close either. The blonde man walked toward Chen Zhao. "Sir, hello. I'm Matthew from the church." Matthew reached out his hand to show his attitude. Chen Zhao also shook hands with Matthew. "Hello. You can call me Chin. Can you explain the current situation? And where is this place?" "I'm afraid not," Chen Zhao said. "I just arrived 3 minutes earlier than you guys." "You don't know either." "Unfortunately, I can't answer your question." Chen Zhao shrugged. "But I picked up a magic lamp and filled it with magic to teleport here." "You too?" "Us too." Matthew raised an eyebrow and couldn't help but look at Chen Zhao. "Are you alone?" "Yes." Seeing that he couldn't get any more information from Chen Zhao, Matthew could only give up for now and start observing the surroundings. "This looks like an independent space," Matthew said. "No," Chen Zhao said. "This isn't an independent space. It should be deep under Desolate Market." "Oh. Why?" Chen Zhao thought so because he could still vaguely feel Bifla's very faint aura. Judging from Bifla's aura, it should have sensed him too. However, they were too far away and separated by thick rock layers, so they couldn't accurately locate each other. But from all the information, they should be above ground or underground. However, they couldn't be sure how far away they were. With the range of their senses, the only place that could block their senses was probably 10,000 meters or even deeper underground. Also, some magic should be sealed here. Chen Zhao's senses were forced back bit by bit. In the end, he realized that his senses had completely disappeared. No, it wasn't completely disappeared. More accurately, he was forced to only sense about an inch around him. However, this was no different from completely disappearing. "Mr. Chen, you're spacing out. Are you thinking about something?" Matthew realized that Chen Zhao didn't answer his question. His expression also looked like his soul was wandering. "Nothing." Chen Zhao shook his head. "Mr. Chen, you haven't answered my question," Matthew said. "We're both spiritualists. Why do you doubt my words?" Chen Zhao said disapprovingly. do I have to tell you my magic and principles? These words left Matthew speechless. However, Matthew was a good person and didn't get angry. Instead, he apologized. Sorry, I was rude. Chen Zhao glanced at Matthew. Are you also participants of the Battle of Holy Glory? Yes, Mr. Chen. You too. Are you a lone ranger? Sort of. Are there only 5 of you left in your team? No, the 5 of us were sent in. Our companions are still outside. For now, Chen Zhao didn't know the current situation. Of course, Matthew and his companions didn't know either. They'd all been summoned. Mr. Chen, do you know how to leave here? No, I don't know anything about this place. Chapter 2267. Orlando, go up and take a look at the surroundings, Matthew said to his companion. As he spoke, a young man about the same age as Matthew leaped into the air. Stunned, Chen Zhao stared at Altador in shock. He can fly. Matthew glanced at Chen Zhao. Is it strange? When you reach a certain level, flying isn't an unattainable dream. Matthew clearly misunderstood Chen Zhao. He thought Chen Zhao was a low-level spiritualist. Chen Zhao was speechless. Why was his flying ability the only one restricted? His senses also seemed to be suppressed by the environment here. What was going on? Matthew's group was clearly weaker than him. But they weren't suppressed. Why was he the only one being suppressed? Moreover, this suppression was from the environment here. It wasn't someone or something. This was the most depressing part for Chen Zhao. If everyone was suppressed together, Chen Zhao would feel better. Or if it was someone targeting him, Chen Zhao could accept it more easily. Chen Zhao rubbed his chin and looked at Orlando, who was flying at an altitude of around 100 meters. Didn't he feel the spiritual vortexes around him? But to Matthew, Chen Zhao's observation of Orlando in the sky was purely an envious look. Just then, a huge pressure descended from the sky and landed on Chen Zhao's head. Bang! Instantly, the ground Chen Zhao was standing on cracked. Matthew and the others jumped to the side in shock. Turning back to look at Chen Zhao, they realized that he was kneeling on the ground. His clothes were tattered and he looked very pathetic. There was a 3-meter-wide pit around him. Mr. Chen. Are you okay? What happened just now? Chen Zhao stood up in a mess. His expression was terrible. He'd been targeted. The environment was targeting him. But why? Why was he being targeted by the environment? What was going on? Chen Zhao's aura started to grow stronger. But the next moment, an even more powerful force descended from the sky and hit Chen Zhao. Boom! Chen Zhao was smashed to the ground by this force. Chen Zhao's figure was imprinted on the originally thick and hard ground. Damn it, what the hell is going on? Matthew and the others looked at Chen Zhao as if he was the plague. They couldn't dodge in time. They didn't understand what was going on either. It was as if an invisible enemy was attacking him. But they didn't find any trace of the enemy. Chen Zhao raised his head and looked at the sky with a confused expression. He didn't sense anyone's hostility. But he was really being targeted. However, his shadow vision did not discover the enemy hidden in the shadows. If shadow vision didn't find anything, then there was most likely no real enemy. Right now, Chen Zhao could do nothing but curse. He didn't even know where the enemy was. This made Chen Zhao very uncomfortable. The more agitated Chen Zhao was, the more his power exploded uncontrollably. At the same time, an even more terrifying attack fell from the sky. Bang! The ground cracked and Qin Zhao was smashed deep into the ground. Is that guy okay? How could he be fine? Even if that guy didn't die, he wouldn't have many breaths left. At this moment, a hand reached out from the pit. Qin Zhao climbed out of the pit with a sad expression. Looking at the sky, Qin Zhao had mixed feelings. It seemed that as long as he used his power, the attack from the heavens would descend. As for what was going on, he didn't know either. But as long as he held his breath and restrained his aura, the attack would stop. However, once his power exceeded that limit, the attack would descend again. That limit was slightly higher than the early stage of Shangqing. This meant that if a spiritualist in the early stage of Shangqing came here, he wouldn't be suppressed or attacked. If he exceeded this limit, the attack would descend continuously. Qin Zhao fell into deep thought. He didn't have any ideas for now. Mr. Qin, are you okay? Matthew asked Qin Zhao, who had climbed out of the pit. I'm fine. Qin Zhao's smile was bitter and helpless. It didn't feel good. If it was a real enemy, no matter how strong or weak the enemy was, Qin Zhao would at least know how to face it. But now, he didn't even know what was going on. Qin Zhao tried his best to calm himself down. If he got angry again, his power would soar again. That boundary might be a realm that others would never be able to touch. But for Qin Zhao now, it was too low. If he used a bit more strength, he would touch that limit. So, Qin Zhao had to carefully restrain his power. But Qin Zhao's restrained aura still looked very weak to Matthew. Qin Zhao's face was pale and his eyes were dim. It seemed that the attack he'd received earlier had seriously injured him. Qin Zhao let out a long breath. The attack just now had been very strong. But it hadn't really hurt Qin Zhao. But Qin Zhao could feel that it wasn't the strongest attack released by the world. If he continued to release his power, it was hard to guarantee that there wouldn't be an even stronger attack or even harm him. Mr. Qin, everyone in our church knows some healing spells, Matthew said sincerely. Let me help you. Thank you. No need. Qin Zhao wasn't injured, so he didn't need healing. Plus, with his magic resistance, both buffs and debuffs weren't very effective on him. Unless Matthew used a super healing spell, it would be a waste of time and magic. Just then, Altador also landed from the sky. Altador first looked deeply at Qin Zhao and then walked to Matthew's side. Altador, how is it? Did you find anything? No, Altador answered. This place is very big, even bigger than the desolate market. The elements here are also very violent. Matthew, what do we do now? We know too little information, Matthew said helplessly. Even if you let me make a decision, I don't have any good ideas. For now, we can only choose one direction. With that, Matthew looked at Qin Zhao. Mr. Qin, do you want to go together? Qin Zhao hadn't shown too much power. However, he'd taken a few strange attacks head-on, which was enough to show that he wasn't weak. Plus, Qin Zhao was injured, so Matthew felt that he could form a good relationship with him. For someone of his status, if there were no accidents, he would definitely have a high status in the future. Right now, he didn't just need to increase his power and level. He also needed to make connections for the future. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.